Hello, and welcome back to Zenin Fanfics. Today we're starting an exciting new series. What if Deku became Quirkless Vigilante? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe for more content. The story we're featuring is written by Jace is dead on archive of ourown.org. You can find all the relevant links in the description, so be sure to check out the author's profile and say hello. Now let's dive into the story. Izuku really cared for people, almost to a fault if you ask the people that he interacted with regularly, but he would never stop caring no matter what. Even when he came across wounded villains, he would treat them and make sure they're okay before taking them to a hospital and having someone notify the police. That's also why many police and even a few heroes didn't see him as a villain, but more of a hero for what he was doing, even if it was technically illegal. The people that hated him most, though, was Endeavor and other heroes that were in it for the money and fame. Yet many people liked him. Even some villains would look for him if they were injured. But he was still considered a vigilante. He had certain areas he would patrol more than others since they had high crime and shelters for kids who were homeless, while others most heroes would avoid for two reasons. One, he was there, and they didn't want to face him, and two, it wasn't popular, so no news coverage. That always pissed him off about certain heroes, not wanting to do things because of little coverage. So that's where he was right now, by one of the shelters he visited to make sure they always had money and food. He was sitting on one of the roofs, simply looking over the streets and listening for anything suspicious that was happening. He hadn't noticed anything yet, but that bothered him. There was always at least something, like maybe a mugging, some drunk adults needing help getting home, kids out too late, or even a simple scared woman wanting to be escorted. But nothing, at least until he heard a gun shot not far from where he was. He jumped at the sound, heading to where the sound came from. He expected a few people to be fighting, but he only found a man laying on the ground with a small pool of BLD around him. Izuku's eyes widened as he realized who the man was. He quickly jumped down and started putting pressure on the wound. "Erasure Head, can you hear me?" The man grunted and opened his eyes. "Who re you?" He slurred out, looking at Izuku. "Not important right now. Did you suffer any other injuries other than the gunshot? Possible broken rib, sprained wrist." The man answered back, trying to get more air into his lungs, blinking rapidly to try and blink away the black spots. "Okay, is there anyone I can call to get you help?" Izuku asked, starting to inspect the wound and see what was happening, as well as poking around it to see what else hurt. "This isn't my first time being shot." Erasure Head deadpanned as he finally seemed to be more awake. "No offense, but I don't care. Now give me your phone." Izuku held out one of his hands, waiting for the phone to be handed to him. When it wasn't, he glared at the man before he finally handed it over. Izuku unlocked it before scrolling through the contacts. He recognized some, but he decided to go with Detective Naomasa. "What is it, Aizawa?" The man sounded tired, but Izuku had more important things to do than mess with the detective. "Evening, Detective. It's Seishin. Erasure Head is down with a bullet wound, sprained wrist, and possible broken ribs." The detective paused before finally speaking. "I'm sending an ambulance to your guys' location. I'll accompany them. If you don't want to risk getting caught, I suggest you leave." The detective warned. "You know me, Detective. If I didn't want to risk getting caught, I wouldn't have called." Izuku hung up and looked back down at the man, who looked shocked. "You're Seishin. You're just a kid." The man was holding eye contact with the boy as he seemed to still process everything. "I know Erasure Head, but at least I'm not the one shot on the ground." He sassed back, trying to lighten up the situation. "You've been seen shot 5 times, stabbed more, and you've fallen off of buildings." Izuku groaned before replying, "Ugh, people saw that." Erasure Head tried to sit up, only for Izuku to push him back down. "Don't move. You might move the bullet and worsen your state." Izuku warned, sounding like a doctor or mother. Erasure Head laid there, wondering who it was under the black medical mask and hat. According to sightings and witnesses, they had been active for almost 5 years now, and they sounded and looked no older than 12. All the sightings were the same: a short, lean person with vibrant green eyes that almost seemed to glow in the dark, in dark leggings and a skin-tight short-sleeved shirt, and always carrying a black staff. But now that Aizawa was up close, he saw small details, such as the small pieces of black hair that showed. The shirt was black with padding, same with the leggings. He wore gloves with metal knuckles, a black sleeve on his left arm that looked electronic, and the staff seemed to be small as it laid on the ground. Not only that, but he had a backpack on his back that was a drawstring. He saw the vigilante pull out first aid things and a few gauze to stop some of the bleeding. You've been doing this for almost 5 years, and you look no older than 14. Though your voice makes you sound older, I can hear the robotics to it, meaning a voice modifier. So how old are you? The boy froze and locked eyes with him again. 13. Izuku answered simply before going back to work on the wound. And what's your quirk? No one's ever seen you use it. Erasure Head didn't think he'd get an answer, but Izuku did anyway. The boy didn't answer, but continued to work on the wound while waiting for the police. Soon the ambulance and detective pulled up with Izuku, explaining the injuries to the paramedics. He was about to leave, but when he turned around, a handcuff latched onto his left hand. The detective smirked at him until he yanked, making the detective lose balance and run away from the situation. So let me get this straight. You ran into an injured Erasure Head and avoided capture once again. Which I'm proud of again, but now you're like 12. The purple-haired boy asked again after hearing the story. Jesus, Izuku, one of these days they're going to catch your dumbass. The blonde nearly shouted at his idiot of a friend. I know, but what was I supposed to do? The boy in question tried to defend himself, but to no avail. I don't know, Dip, SHD, call the cops, patch him up. Don't answer his F questions, then leave. Izuku was glad they were at his apartment, and not somewhere else where someone might call the cops. Okay, maybe it wasn't the best idea, but I had to help him Kakin. He could have died. Izuku said, trying to defend himself again. I'll give you that, but it was still a dumb move, Izu. Something could have went wrong. But it didn't, Toshi. Therefore I did the right thing. Izuku shrieked as he declared himself the winner of the argument. Yeah, whatever. Now get your F food, you useless assholes. But Kugu grumbled at them. I'll have you know, I am perfectly useful. Shinsou declared as he grabbed one of the rice ball. I, however, am not. Izuku declared, almost proudly grabbing one as well. Zuka, we've talked about this. But Kugu said under his breath, making both the boys laugh. They all sat in a comfortable silence as they finished their lunch. At the end, both boys ended up leaving to head back home and telling him they would be back to check on him after a few patrols to make sure he wasn't dead. It had been a week since Izuku had ran into Erasure Head, and he hoped it would stay that way for now. He stood on the edge of the building looking over into the streets and alleys. He had been watching this area for about an hour now, and seeing as there wasn't any movement, he figured it was time to move again. He stepped over the edge and allowed himself to drop, heading toward the ground. He was halfway to the ground when something was wrapped around him, making him stop and let out a quiet squeak. He struggled in the binds, trying to maneuver to his knife he had on him, but the catcher had already pulled him up and let him go on the roof. W.O., it's you. Izuku looked at the tired man in front of him and smirked under his mask. Hey, Erasure. Good to see you're all healed up. He stood up and brushed off the fake dust before smiling widely and turning around to leave. Hold it. Erasure Head grabbed onto his shoulder to stop him. But before he could think, he was flipped over the boy's shoulder and onto the ground. He looked up, and the boy looked absolutely pissed until he blinked and jumped back a little in shock. Oh, sorry, Erasure, you scare me a little. He tried to play it off and laughed awkwardly while helping up Erasure Head. MH, it's fine, but I can't just let you go. You're a vigilante. Izuku's eyes widened, and he took off, running across the buildings. Don't make this difficult. Erasure Head yelled, running after Izuku. I'm not. You're the one chasing me. Izuku yelled back, trying to lose the hero. They continued running around until there was a scream. Izuku immediately stopped and turned to the direction of the scream, running to help. When he got there, he saw a woman surrounded by 4 men. He quietly took out 2 of the guys, tying them up and heading for the other 2. Look, boys, he's here. The girl stopped crying as she spoke. Oh ho ho. So the little fox actually showed up. As soon as the man said that, Izuku felt panic rise into his chest. The man slammed his hand onto the ground, causing electricity to flow in the ground. Izuku jumped up, avoiding getting hit. Once he landed, the woman was in front of him with a knife pointed at his face. She slashed down, cutting from his jaw down his neck. He jumped back in surprise and almost got caught in the arms of the other man. He jumped into the air, pulling out his staff and making it turn to its usual size. He began fighting off the 3, getting the man with electric cord down first, then the girl, then the other man. Once they were all down and tied up for the police, Izuku caught his breath. His part of his face was still bleeding, and his chest felt like it was closing around him, and his vision swam slightly as he tried a breath. Before he finally hit the ground, someone had caught him, making him started to panic and thrash until the person spoke. Hey, calm down. You need a breath. He immediately recognized the voice and sunk slightly into the person, finally catching his breath and calming down. He stood up again, finally gaining his balance and seeing his surroundings. Good of you to join, Erasure Head. He sassed a little as he picked up his staff and shrunk it back down, and putting on the back of his waist, he pulled out a few bandages from his bag and started patching up his cheek as best he could until Erasure Head stopped him. Jesus, kid. He took the supplies and started redoing them since he had a better angle than Izuku. Oh, thanks. He sat there letting the hero work on him as he thought up of more weapons. He could have to be more prepared. I could go for a retractable knife on my right arm as a defense and weapon, or a foldable shield instead that I could throw like in that old comic. You're mumbling. He jumped a little, but not enough to affect his wound, and I would go with the shield, not a weapon you can be triad for. Izuku blushed a little. Sorry, old habit. Erasure Head stared at him for a moment before standing back up and helping up. Izuku, guess you gotta try and arrest me now. Erasure Head stared at him again before sighing. I'm going to regret this, he whispered to himself. But Izuku heard him. Okay, problem child, get out of here. Izuku looked at him shocked. What? Leave before I change your mind and do arrest you. Izuku looked at him before shouting yes. He hugged the hero but pulled away before the other could react. Thanks, Erasure Head. Also, I think I'll do the shield. The boy quickly climbed up the building and left the hero behind in shocked. He hugged you? Namiri asked, trying not to laugh. Yes. Aizawa stated, simply trying to get away from the topic. Why would he do that? Yamada asked, butting in. Before Aizawa could answer, the principal walked in holding a box. It seems you have a present, Erasure Head. The three looked up. Who's it from? He asked, taking the box. On the top was a written Seishin, and he groaned. It would seem our young vigilante friend. The other two heroes gasped and grabbed the box from him to open it. When they opened it, the two gasped and squealed. Inside the box was a small kitten with a black coat and white around its neck with yellow eyes. It stood up and meowed at them. Show Yuta. It looks like you. Aizawa walked over and picked up the small kitten, having it curl up into his arms and purr. Both the other heroes started squealing, getting the attention of some of the other heroes who were now all looking at the kitten. Aizawa pulled out a note from the box and read it with the other teachers looking over his shoulder to read it. Dear Erasure Head, thanks for the help and patching up. The cut is going to scar, though. Anyway, one of my friends said I owe you one, and the other has a cat that just had kittens, so he let me take this one to give to you, saying it looked like you. It has a twin, but they wanted to keep that one, so he told me to give you this one. Sincerely, Seishin. P.S. She likes to hide in things, so she'll probably hide in your scarf. As they finished reading, the kitten climbed into his scarf and started sleeping on his shoulders. All the teachers awed at it as Aizawa sighed and sat down at his desk to get back to work with the others, soon doing the same. You're such a dad. He activated his quirk and looked at Namiri with a glare. What? He asked in a low voice. Oh, come on, that stopped working long ago, but look at it. You patch him up, let him go, and he gave you a cat. You love cats. Aizawa sighed and pet the cat, felling its snuggle into his neck. He let out a small smile, only to glare at Yamada and Namiri when they took pictures and giggled. Delete those, he demanded. No, I just got pictures of my soft husband, and I'm never getting rid of them, Yamada declared before running out the door, followed by Namiri. Do you think he liked the cat? Shinsou asked to Izuku, who was sitting at his workbench. The principal, somehow, contacted me and sent me pictures of him smiling while petting it, so yeah, probably. Shinsou laughed, but seemed in a good mood. Good. Erasure misses his sister, though. Izuku put down the shield he was working on and spun around to face his friend. Wonder if he would adopt. What? Shinsou yelled in surprise and fell out of his chair and onto the ground, where a small kitten with a plain black coat and green's eyes ran over and started licking him. Okay, kitten, I think you love him enough. The small animal looked up with her tongue still out. Yeah, she's a little derp. He teased going back to his work. I'll have to ask him next time if he does. After a little while, Izuku jumped from his desk with a victory cry. Did you finish it? Shinsou asked, looking up from his phone with a small smile, seeing his friend smile with excitement. Throw something at me, he yelled, holding up his right arm that was in a black sleeve glove. Shinsou picked up one of his shoes and threw it at him. Izuku turned his hand into a fist as the shoe came flying. A shield unfolded from the sleeve and blocked the shoe. Now, check this out. He grabbed onto the shield with his other hand and threw it, making it hit a wall and bury itself into the wall. The shield was a shiny black with silver edges in the shape of a shield from the medieval movies. Wow, that's pretty cool, Izuku, Shinsou said, pulling out the shield and looking at it. It was pulled from his hands and sent flying to Izuku, who caught it and laughed at the other boy's face. It's awesome, isn't it? Izuku cheered as he put the shield back on and turned it back to its smaller form. Okay, it's awesome. Shinsou's phone pinged, making him look at the screen with a sigh. Okay, I gotta go see Izuku. He waved goodbye and left, going back to the house. Izuku was out at the store looking for any snacks he could find. So far, all he had gotten was coffee, cookies, and applesauce packets. Bakugo had argued that he needed more actual food, but he just waved him off. The store was pretty quiet since it was pretty late at night. He always liked the store like this since it was quiet and kind of creepy, plus no one would even question him. How do you lose a man, Hisashi? Especially your husband. Izuku looked confused as he turned a corner and saw two people looking frantically around the area, a little panicked. Are you guys okay? Izuku asked, walking up to the two adults. Oh, sorry, we just lost our friend and can't find him. The woman explained, a little calmer than how she just sounded. Izuku pulled out his phone and started typing on it, pulling up the security cameras, AMD, going through them. What does he look like? Long black hair, kind of like a hobo. The woman explained. Most appealing man in the world. The man said, both causing Izuku to laugh. Okay, well, it looks like he's in aisle 7. While Izuku was looking, he realized that the man they were looking for was Erasure Head, and he didn't feel like fighting tonight if they did. Well, thanks. The two hugged him, about to leave until the woman stopped. Would you come with us in case we lose him again, please? Izuku froze, from 1, the shock, and 2, he could get caught, but if he said no, it would be suspicious. Sure, I won't mind. The 3 started walked when the 2 introduced themselves. All right, my name's Kiyama Namuri. Namuri greeted as she smiled at Izuku. My name's Yamada Hisashi. My name's Midoriya, Izuku. Nice to meet you, Midoriya. But why are you out here so late? Oh, well, I don't really do good with people, and it's usually pretty empty at this time, so I'm not as nervous. It wasn't a lie. He didn't do well with people unless he was in his mask or calmed down more. Oh, sorry, we didn't mean to freak you out if we did. Yamada apologized while Namuri agreed. No, it's fine, just wasn't expecting it. Izuku waved them off as the conversation dipped into different random topics until they ran into Erasure Head. I'll show you to, glad we found you. This is Midoriya, Izuku. Midoriya, Aizawa Shoyuta. Namuri introduced the 2. Izuku was panicking, but he pushed it down and rubbed his neck awkwardly. It's nice meeting you, Aizawa. They needed help finding you is all. He said with a small smile. I better go, though. Have a nice night. He quickly walked away until he turned the corner and ran to pay and leave. Aizawa stared as the boy left before sighing heavily and glaring at the 2. What did we do? Yamada asked, a little scared. You just gave my civilian name to Seishin, or Midoriya, Izuku now. He sighed again as his friend started freaking out. That was him. Yamada nearly shrieked as Aizawa glared at him, but he was so nice and awkward and adorable. Namuri cried as she waved her hands. What did you expect? He's a problem child who gave me a kitten for patching up that injury on his cheek. That's now that scar. Oh my God, we just let him get away. Namuri cried as Yamada still panicked. You know you wouldn't have arrested him. We have no proof except what I saw, and even then that's questionable, but both heroes looked at him as he spoke. We have a name now. Midoriya Izuku, age 13, quirkless. Mother died in a hit and run when he was 5 and was placed in an orphanage. 3 months later, ran away from the orphanage and has dropped off the map until now, well, not really seeing, as he's technically all over the news. The detective explained to Aizawa, Yamada, Namuri, and Nedzu, who were all sitting in the principal's office. Problem child. Aizawa mumbled under his breath as he heard all the information. What about the father? Namuri asked, processing everything. Villain named Dragon, arrested when the boy was 4 for spouse abuse. Aizawa sighed and sunk back into his chair. And no one ever reported him missing. Yamada asked, looking a little angry. No, we questioned the owners, and they said they didn't because no one wanted him there, because he was quirkless. We arrested the owners for quirk discrimination and moved the children. Nedzu sent a sincere smile towards Detective Tsukachi, who just nodded his head. It seems like quite the predicament we're in, Nedzu said happily as he threw his hands into the air. I need a nap. You gave them your name. Bakugu yelled as he threw his pencil at Izuku. Okay, I didn't. It was a dumb move. You bet your F, but it was. They can track you now to here. He yelled with explosions in his palms. As much as I hate to agree with the explosive idiot hey, why didn't you just give them a fake name or something? Shinsou asked, dodging another pencil from the explosive teen. I don't know. It slipped my mind, and Kakin, they can't track me. I used a fake name to dash. Izuku was cut off by his screaming friend again. Why didn't you use that one then, but hat? Because. Then they could track me here and I would be arrested. I would have needed a different one, but I couldn't think of it. He cried out as he sunk to the floor, accepting defeat. Ugh, whatever. Just finish the work I gave you already, so you aren't more of a dumbass. Love you to Kakin. I'll burn you into the F ground. Midoriya, Izuku, huh? The boy turned around and smirked at the man. Aizawa, show you to, huh? Aizawa groaned as he sat down on the ledge next to the boy, though he didn't have his legs hanging off like the other. Why don't you just turn yourself in? We know who you are, and what you're doing isn't technically illegal, so why not? Aizawa asked, getting away from their usual playful tone. Because what are you going to do? You'll stop me from helping people and being able to do it without getting others in trouble. Izuku continued, looking down at the ground as the hero tried to speak. Mid-dash, Izuku cut him off before he could get the first word out. Do you plan on adopting someone with present mic? How did Dash answer the question? Aizawa looked from Izuku to the ground. Yes, at some point anyway. Izuku stood up and handed Aizawa a piece of paper. Go to this address. Ask to see Shinsou Hitoshi. He actually needs help. He stood up and began walking away. He's the friend that gave you the cat. Bye, Aizawa. I'll see you later. He left with a cheery voice. Aizawa looked at the address before pulling out his phone and calling someone. Hey, how do you feel about adopting someone? Shinsou sat in his room, petting his cat Erasure as he scrolled through the news to see if he needed to check on Izuku. Usually, if he was hurt, it would somehow get all over and lead to both him and Bakugu stomping over there to make sure he actually treated himself, like when he got the scar on his cheek a few months ago. Hey, go downstairs. There's a couple looking to adopt, and they asked to see you for some dim-end reason. The worker said, walk back out of his room. He didn't say anything since most people didn't allow him to talk due to his quirk, so he just walked out of his room with Erasure on his shoulders. He doubted that these people would actually want to adopt him after he used his quirk. He always used it on people that seemed a little suspicious, and they usually turn out to be some creeps or something. When he walked into the designated room, he was shocked to see that it was none other than his 2 favorite heroes in civilian clothing, though he didn't let it show. He sat down on the chair facing them, and as soon as he knew no one else was listening, he spoke up. Who are you and what do you want? Neither seemed to shy away from the questioning, and present Mike only smiled brighter. Well, we're looking to adopt, and we wanted someone old enough to handle themselves when we aren't home. Shinsou glared at the 2 until Erasure jumped from his shoulders and walked towards the 2. They watched as another cat jumped out of Aizawa's scarfs. ANS started playing with Erasure. So I was right. You're Erasure Head and present Mike. Yamada looked a little shocked, but Aizawa, didn't he only smirked, which means you're probably actually here because you learned who Seishin was and want answers. He stated, simply glaring at the table. Aizawa now understood why Izuku had sent them here. He obviously wasn't being treated right, and he could tell that by how everyone reacted when they asked to see Shinsou, and now he could see sadness in the boy's eyes as he said that. You want to be a hero, right? Aizawa asked out of the blue, looking the boy in the eyes while Yamada just smirked. What's it to you? They said you have a villain's quirk, so I'm asking, do you want to be a hero? The boy looked in his eyes as he glared. Yes. Great, Hisashi. Go tell the woman we're taking Shinsou, then call Detective Naomasa about quirk discrimination. Yamada smiled and stood up. Welcome to the family, Shinsou. He cheered before walking out the door. What just happened? Shinsou asked, looking confused as all hell. We just adopted you. I get that, but why? Aizawa stared at him before answering. I've heard a lot about you from Midoriya, and I already know you're a good kid that just wants to be a hero, and I only help those who have potential. And you seem to have it, so we're adopting you and getting that woman arrested for quirk discrimination. Yeah, but don't you just want me to give you information on Izu, so you can arrest him? Aizawa stared a little shocked, but didn't quite show it. We don't want to arrest him. We decided we want him to become a hero legally. He just doesn't quite trust us enough. Shinsou lifted an eyebrow, expecting something more. Aizawa sighed before continuing, and I want to give you both something you haven't had in a while. And that would be a family. Yamada finished as he walked back into the room. Shinsou looked between the two before putting his head and his arms on the desk. The two looked worried to each other as his body began to shack. Yamada placed his hand on the boy's back till he lifted his head, revealing he was laughing with tears down his face. Oh my God, I hate you both. He playfully shouted as Yamada hugged him, with Aizawa soon joining. It hadn't been long since they adopted the boy, but they noticed a pattern he seemed to have. Almost every day after school, instead of going home, he would apparently go to a friend's house and work on homework before coming back. Then, a little before Aizawa would go on patrol, he would sometimes call someone and slightly yell at them with someone else. At first, they thought it was Izuku, seeing as he would talk about his day with Aizawa and mention his friends visiting, but one day, when Yamada was planning on taking Shinsou out for ice cream, since he had done good on a few tests, he saw him walking with an ash-blonde boy who looked almost always angry. After the third time, seeing them together, Yamada had proposed an idea to Aizawa about inviting the boy over. I don't see why not, as long as he doesn't destroy anything. Now he only had to convince the two boys to come over. When Friday rolled around, Yamada drove to pick up Shinsou. He saw him walking with the same blonde boy, except this time the blonde was signing instead of talking with Shinsou, signing back. He read some of it and was a little surprised. So you haven't called either of them Dad or Papa? The blonde signed somehow angrily to the boy. No, what if they get mad? Oh, please, they adopted your sorry, but plus the boy did a symbol sort of thing he didn't recognize, got them to you, and he's not that dumb. The symbol must have meant Midoriya, then he thought to himself. Though he wasn't sure how he liked the boy calling Shinsou a sorry, but Yamada walked up to the two waving. The blonde, upon seeing him, lifted his hands separately to his ears before going back to walking normally. Hearing age, Yamada thought, but he signed his words normally, so he continued anyway. Hey Hitoshi, your friend should have dinner with us, he said, looking between the two. Sure, you want to? He turned to the blonde, who hadn't changed from his angry expression. Why not? I'll tell the hag. He pulled out his phone, sending a text. Hag. Yamada signed. He means his mom. Yamada lifted an eyebrow, but didn't question it further. She doesn't care, he said. Yamada could see the slightly sadness in his eyes, but didn't comment. Okay, boys. Shall we? He led them to the car with both boys sitting in the back, texting on their phones. Oh no, my family issues finally adopted. Hey, me and Mr. Explosion won't be over. The papa wants to have him for dinner, mommy issues. Don't call me that, Einstein. What's illegal, sir? Ooh, I'll miss you, mommy issues. Use that cursed SHD again, and you're dead. What's illegal, sir? Oh, do it then, finally adopted. Oh, I'd like to see you try mommy issues. I hate you both. What's illegal, sir? Those platonic cuddles you give say otherwise. Kakin finally adopted. I think you broke him. He's silently screaming at his phone, and the papa is concerned. What's illegal, sir? Good, let him simmer. He tastes best. Then mommy issues. What the actual F Zuka, we're here, boys. Yamada declared, both saying goodbye to Izuku and getting out of the car. Bakugo looked at the house and chuckled. Defiantly an upgrade from the other shitty place, Einstein. I know. Yamada was confused by the interaction. Did they always walked in and saw Aizawa in the living room grading some papers. He looked up, then back down at his papers. Okay, well, that's my room. That's the bathroom, living room, and kitchen. Shinsuo pointed to all the doors except two, but Bakugo didn't say anything. Aizawa, this is Bakugo, Aizawa, and Yamada. I'll be right back. Shinsuo walked to the bathroom and closed the door. Bakugo turned to both adults with a glare. If I find out you F-airs somehow hurt him in any way, I'll make it my personal mission to kill you, he said, pointing at both of them. So you're the other friend, Aizawa stated, simply leaning back into the couch. Excuse me, Bakugo asked, still looking pissed. The one Seishin talks about, or, and I quote, angry Pomeranian who will most certainly threaten you. Bakugo stood in shock till he started glaring again. Try and hurt Zuko either, and you're dead. Aizawa sighed as Yamada smiled, almost fondly. Problem children everywhere I look, they just appear. Yamada burst out laughing at that while Bakugo just looked really confused until Shinsuo walked back out. Okay, let's work on the homework, Mr. Explosion. Bakugo shrieked, but still followed Shinsuo to his room to work. Throughout the time there, they had learned that Bakugo was hard of hearing due to his quirk, so he preferred a sign when he was out of school, and that he was Izuku's best friend since they were kids, a little longer than Shinsuo, and he was a good fighter as well as smart. Izuku had just finished patrol as he stumbled into his living room. He had stayed out way later than he expected with 3 days' worth of no sleep under his belt. That didn't help since he was sloppier than normal. He had also gotten more injured than usual. Luckily, nothing too bad, but he was too tired to deal with them right now. He fell asleep with scraps and bruises all over him. When he had woken up, it was from someone unlocking his door. He panicked for a moment until he realized only Bakugo and Shinsuo had keys. The door opened, revealing two said boys walking in, both looking tired and ready to die at this point. You both look like SHD, Izuku said in his tired and injured state. Not to good yourself, but you look like someone threw you into a wall. Bakugo said, going into the kitchen and grabbing a few waters. I did. 3 times, in fact. Not as fun as it sounds. What does that sound fun, Aizu? Shinsuo asked, moving the boy's legs so he could sit on the couch. It's not this the point. Izuku slurred out, almost falling asleep again. Bakugo came back with a few medical supplies and woke Izuku back up. No falling asleep, yet Zuko, sit up. The boy did as he was told and sat up, allowing Bakugo to sit on the couch as well. Izuku woke up enough to help in patching up his wounds, and once he was done, he laid back down on Bakugo and used him as a pillow, all 3 soon falling asleep. When they all woke up again, Izuku was the first and saw that the 2's phones had blown up for messages. He looked at the 2 phones and unlocked them and answering them over text. Tired son. Sorry, Toshi fell asleep at my house. Tired dad. Who is this? Tired son. Just your favor, don't worry, I'll send him home soon. Loud dad. Thank you, but if he isn't home in an hour or doesn't text us, I'm calling the cops. Tired son. No problem. Brat. Sorry, Ms. Bakugo, Katsuki fell asleep at my house. I'll send him home soon. Hag. Thanks, Akatani. Izuku got up all the way and shook the 2 boys awake, one grumbling and the other throwing one of the pillows at him. Hey, don't blame me if Toshi's parents get us arrested. He cried out, dodging said pillow, but that seemed to wake up the 2. What? Shinsuo said, now fully awake while Bakugo was still out of it. Yamada said if he didn't get back or text in an hour that he would call the cops. SHD, Shinsuo jumped up and grabbed his stuff before rushing out the door and saying goodbye. Bakugo got up slower though and mumbled curses the entire time before leaving to his house. After getting pulled into a trap over a year ago by a group of thugs, you would think he would be more cautious or stop, but nope. He still took all the same routes and helped people still, even if he could have died back then if he wasn't so good at his job. He was stopping a simple mugging when someone dropped behind him after he had tied up the mugger and was making sure the victim was okay. When he heard the person drop, he got in between the other man and the person who had landed. You make quite the name for yourself, Seishin. Izuku helped the victim get away before answering. Thanks, but who are you? The voice chuckled and sounded dark. I will be the one to fix this world. The voice made him want to freeze, but he stood his ground and was ready to be attacked. But the man pulled a katana out and went for the villain. Izuku's yes widened as he got in front of the man and took the hit instead of the villain. Izuku felt pain as the man slashed the katana down across his chest from his right shoulder to left hip. BLD dripped from the wound as he fell to his knees, but he slowly stood back up. The voice chuckled again. I see you're a true hero. Even though you don't wear that title, you get to live. The man ran away, leaving the bleeding boy to try and breath. Sure, he had seen people die and kill while he was on the street and always tried to stop it, but here he was once again almost being killed. He used his staff to try and walk and was slightly successful to get back to his apartment to stop the bleeding. He successfully made it back to the apartment and started to stitch his chest up. It was sloppy, but at least he wasn't bleeding out that bad anymore. He wrapped his torso to stop the bleeding before going into the kitchen to get food and water. He knew he would need it with how much BLD he lost. This just in, the newswoman said going to a crime scene, the vigilante Seishin was apparently injured by a slash down their chest. Police have asked people to keep a lookout for someone with that injury. If you see anything, contact the police and a hospital. The two pro heroes looked in shock at the screen, not sure what to do. Sakachi Naomasa. UF idiot. Aizawa stormed into the principal's office with Yamada and Namiri, trying to calm him down. The detective looked up confused with the principal smiling. Good afternoon, Aizawa. What seems to be the problem? The principal asked with a little mischievous in his voice. The problem is that Seishin could die. The detective looked even more confused until Aizawa continued. You told people to be on the lookout. He isn't going to go to a hospital or get help if people are looking for him. He could die. My people say that with the amount of BLD left behind that the wound wasn't too deep, because he left soon after the attack. You and I both know that BLD trail was longer than it needed to be. Aizawa quieted down, but was still glaring at the detective and talking with a cold voice. If he's as smart as he's proven, then he'll be fine. Before Aizawa could speak, the detective continued. If it's bad, then your kid will tell us right. I'm sorry I made a snap judgment about the situation. I'm aware what happened, but my chief decided it was best to tell everyone. That's why I haven't put his name in the case file. Aizawa glared at the man for another moment. Fine. He turned around and walked back to the teacher's lounge. Shinsou sat on the train in a panic, hoping the boy was dead in some alley or dead on the couch. Once him and his dads had seen the news, they had told him to make sure that Izuku wasn't dead and to call if something happened. He really hoped one of his only friends wasn't dead. Yes, he said one. Then again, he only had two, Izuku and Bakugo. He wasn't super close with Bakugo, but they hung out enough to go to each other for problems if Izuku wasn't available. So when the train stopped, he all but bolted out of the train and ran towards where Izuku lived. When he got to the door, he quickly unlocked it. Izuku, he yelled as he quickly closed the door. Said boy slowly walked out of the kitchen with an empty bowl of katsudon and a water in the other hand. He had bandages wrapped around his shoulder and stomach with a very small amount of BLD on it. Hi, Toshi. What's up? Shinsou just looked at him before running over and pulling him into a hug. Shinsou buried his head into the crook of Izuku's neck and breathed a sigh of relief. Toshi, as much as I love your visits, shouldn't you be at school? Izuku chuckled before groaning slightly in pain, making Shinsou let go and look at him again. Aizu, I thought you died. Izuku looked sadly at his friend and set down his things and hugged the boy. When I saw the news, I was ready to tell Katsuki and my dads that I was too late, and that you. He stopped talking as he held Izuku tighter. I'm sorry, I acted without thinking. Izuku led them to the couch, where he moved the table and used the pull-out couch, while Shinsou grabbed blankets and pillows for them to use. Once everything was set up and the two laid down with Izuku using him as a human pillow, Shinsou quickly texted Yamada, Aizawa, and Bakugo that he was okay and not bleeding out. Neither of them woke up until someone walked in and closed the door, though only Izuku woke up. Kakin. Izuku asked, still a little out of it. The boy looked at the bed and smirked. Go back to sleep, nerd. Bakugo said as he set all of his things down and sat on the edge to change out of his uniform. That's okay, I'm not dead. The blonde froze as his friend spoke. He turned around with a small smile. You're not. Though it sounded like he was talking to himself more than anything. Bakugo walked around to the other side before lying in the bed next to Izuku. Both soon falling asleep, Aizawa and Yamada had both seen Izuku in and out of uniform, and both with very different experiences. When Yamada had first met Izuku in uniform, it was because he had come across the pro hero in a tight spot and helped get the villains knocked out, and leaving with a goodbye and almost nothing else. But Aizawa ran into the boy a few times in uniform, both usually talking or helping each other out, but absolutely nothing else. He'd no idea what would make someone think that. The two only running into Izuku out of uniform at the store before he ran off. So when Shinsou hadn't come back from making sure Izuku was okay, the two were a little worried, especially when it was getting late and he wasn't answering his phone. I'm sure he's fine, Shoyuta. Maybe he lost track of time. Yamada tried to reason, even though he was panicking as well. If he lost track of time, he would have answered his phone by now. Aizawa answered through gritted teeth as he pulled out his laptop. What are you doing? Yamada asked, looking over his shoulder at the screen. Looking his last known location with a tracker on his phone. Aizawa pulled up the map showing he was at an apartment complex, but not which apartment. Okay, let's head there and ask the owner. Yamada nodded his head as he grabbed their keys and headed out. When they made it to the complex, they headed to the front desk where a woman stood. Good evening, gentlemen. Can I help you? She asked with an obvious fake smile. Our son came here this morning and he hasn't made it home. We were wondering if he had left her yet. Yamada spoke since he was a better people person than Aizawa. Oh, the boy with the blonde hair or with the purple. Those are the only two I've seen other than Akatani. Oh, the purple-haired one. We wanted to go check on him and make sure he was okay. Okay, well, he's in Akatani's apartment, which is apartment level 3, number 7. Okay, thank you, ma'am. The two walked away and started heading to the apartment number. Who's Akatani? Aizawa asked. He didn't want to admit it, but him and Shinsou talked a lot more together than him and Shinsou due to his schedule. I don't know, he's never mentioned him. Only Midoriya and Deku. Both wore a small frown as they made it up the levels. Kaken, can you make us some food, please? Izuku cried as he sprawled himself over his friend. Yeah, get your butt up so I can go to the F kitchen. Izuku cheered as Shinsou acted like he was thanking the gods. Wait, Toshi, did you check in with your dads? Izuku asked as he got up and walked over to his friend who was doing work. Oh, SHD, I forgot. He reached over to his phone to turn it on, but it remained a black screen. CRP, it's dead. The three went back to their own things, waiting for Bakugo to finish his food, the blonde listening to his music in the process, so he could focus better. It was silent besides the music, and Izuku messing with his gear until there was a knock at the door. All three stopping and looking at the door, Bakugo stopped the music as Izuku stood with his staff in hand walking to the door. He opened it fast, holding his staff in front of him with a glare ready to attack. That was until he came face to face with Erasure Head and Present Mic. As soon as he saw them, he yelped and slammed the door closed and put his back against it. Tashi, your parents are at my door, and I'm a vigilante, he stated, both the boys looking at him in shock. You're both absolute F idiots, Bakugo said as he walked to the door, pushing Izuku out of the way and opening the door with a glare and teeth showing. What the hell do you want? He asked almost like a growl. Nice to see you, to Bakugo. Aizawa deadpanned as he met the boy's eyes. We came to check on Hitoshi since he didn't come home or text. Sorry, my phone died. Shinsou called from the couch as he went back to his work. Izuku slowly stepped out by Bakugo and waved shyly. Hi. He slowly put away his staff and turned back to the door, coming in. Bakugo sighed and picked Izuku up, moving him out of the way. Come in and sit the F down. I'm making food. He threw Izuku on the couch next to Shinsou, both squawking and falling off the couch into a pail on the floor. Love you to Lava Girl. Shinsou yelled as he stood back up and waved at his parents. Call me that SHD again and you want eat. Bakugo called back as he walked back into the kitchen. Wait, no, feed me. Shinsou yelled back. Yamada and Aizawa slowly made their way to the couch with Shinsou in the middle, while Izuku sat on one of the chairs messing with his gear again. It was pretty silent, minus the music starting back up again, but it was definitely awkward for Izuku, since two people that were supposed to be— Izuku, did you wrap your bandages yet? Bakugo called from the kitchen. The boy in question jumped at the voice as the two heroes looked at him, finally realizing he wasn't wearing a shirt, but almost covered in bandages on his front, some bell D peeking through. No, Izuku said slowly, standing up. Aizu, Shinsou called like a warning, not even lifting his head. Fine, fine, I get it. I'll go rewrap them. He yelled, walking into his bedroom and closing the door. Shinsou and Bakugo both sighed as Shinsou was about to stand up. He's going to need help. Aizawa stopped him and stood up himself. I'll help him stay here. He walked over to the door and knocked before walking in. Hitoshi said you might need dash. He paused as he looked at the boy. He could see bullet scars and old stab wounds almost littering his body with slash marks. But what caught him so off guard was the long cut down his chest and stomach. He realized Izuku was staring at him in fear until he looked him in the eyes and continued talking that you might need help with the bandages. I'm sure, thanks. So how long have you two known Midoriya? Yamada asked, turning to somewhat face the two. Our mothers were friends before she died. Bakugo explained, finishing up the food and giving it to the two in the room. We met at one of the orphanages we went to. After they moved me, we would just text. Then how did you find out he was a vigilante? Yamada asked, a little curious, since it sounded like they had all met young, but they were all only around 13. Both paused, remembering what had happened for them to find out. I found out when Heifers got injured. Bakugo explained, setting down his own plate. It wasn't to F bad, but there was enough BLD to make me panic, and that was about when we were 9. I found out when we were around 9 as well. He had saved me from some mugging and accidentally called me Toshi, so I've known ever since. Yamada nodded his head in thought at the information processing everything. Aizawa and Izuku came back out with new bandages wrapped around him. Bakugo looked up and pointed to the food with a thanks from both of them. They sat in a somewhat comfortable silence, with Yamada telling stories to fill the silence until Aizawa spoke up. Why did you become a vigilante? As he spoke, he didn't even look the boy in the eyes. They all froze at the question, while the other three looked to Aizawa in shock. Because I want to help people. Izuku looked at the ground with a glare like it had personally offended him. Why not go to a hero school then? Because I was an orphan, quirkless kid. People don't exactly let people without powers into a hero course. He let out a pained chuckle, so when I saw people who needed help, I helped them without even thinking. Aizawa hummed, then turned to the other two boys. And why didn't you stop him? The two looked down at the ground, then to Izuku. Dumbass wanted to do something to leave an impact on people and help without needing to be paid to do it. And considering he's the most known vigilante, he got what he wanted. Bakugo explained, finally looking back to Aizawa. After seeing him in action and helping people, I didn't see a reason to. Shinsou explained, not looking to either of them. Aizawa looked in between the group, but soon gave up and sighed while sinking into the couch. Okay. We won't arrest you or take you in as long as you call us if something goes wrong, okay? Izuku looked at the hero in shock and tackled him into a hug. Yes. Thank you. Aizawa sat there a little shocked, but the other three just chuckled at the scene and the face Aizawa was making before taking a few pictures. Okay, that's enough, Aizawa declared, but didn't make a move to move the boy, but just looked at him. We should go since it's getting kind of late and I have patrol. Izuku finally let go and showed them out with Bakugo staying. Okay, now that they left, I should probably also go on patrol. Bakugo glared at the younger boy before pulling him into a hug for a minute. I swear to God, if you come back with AF injury, I'm killing you. Izuku chuckled, but hugged back. I'll try not to. It wasn't a quiet night, much to Izuku's dread. There had been so much activity to the point that he ran into people who normally only patrolled during the day, or almost not at all. And that's how he found himself almost in the middle of a hero fight with Erasure Head and Present Mike. He was lucky that the two wouldn't arrest him and they need help, but he wasn't lucky with the fact that there are other police officers and news people watching the entire thing. It also wasn't helpful that the police officers were trying to catch him while in the fight. The villain wasn't too difficult, but the hostages and police made it more difficult than it needed to be. So while Present Mike and Erasure Head dealt with the villain and held back the police, Izuku went and tried getting the hostages to safety. I need you all to stay low and quiet, okay? Izuku told the small group of people as he looked around the area. They all nodded except one who looked terrified and worried. The small boy grabbed onto Izuku's sleeve and yanked on it, getting his attention. My friend is stuck inside still. Please help her. Izuku's eyes widened as he picked up the boy. Don't worry, I'll get you guys out then. I'll get your friend. He lead the group out into safety before running back into searching for the girl. He ran into the building with it falling apart around him. He got to a more destroyed area where there was almost no ground. He was about to leave until he heard crying and saw the small girl curled up into a ball. Hey, it's okay. He slowly picked up the girl to make sure she was okay. I'm going to get you out of here, okay? The girl finally looked up starstruck. You're Seishin. Izuku smiled at the girl. That's right, now hold on tight. The girl clutched his shirt as he made his way down and out of the building. It was going smoothly for the most part, with a few scraps and cuts on Izuku, and a few whimpers from the girl until they got to the second floor, and the building shook violently. The girl screamed as Izuku tried to stand his ground without falling over. He opened his shield and lifted it over them to cover them from some of the debris falling. You're hurt. The girl spoke, quietly, still in shock. Izuku looked to where she was looking, finally seeing the wounds. There was a piece of metal lodged in his shoulder and another in his leg. He could see a lot of the BLD now, and his vision blurred slightly. Seems like it. He turned his head back to the girl and pulled his mask down, showing a smile, but don't worry. It takes a lot more to put Seishin down. The girl smiled with a few tears as he pulled his mask back up and making it out of the building. He got the girl to her friend before turning to see the villain taken down, with Present Mike talking to an officer and a newswoman. He also saw Erasure Head heading his way. He turned to face the man until he heard a gunshot and a scream before feeling pain. Don't. Izuku fell to his knees and held his stomach with pain flowing through him. He pulled his hand away to see BLD seeping into his gloves. He turned around and saw one of the officers shaking while holding a gun, with the others looking just as shocked. He slowly into one of his pockets and locked eyes with Erasure Head, who looked like he had seen a ghost, and threw down the small object, causing a flash to appear as he ran. Aizawa followed him to a close roof and caught the boy as he fell to the ground again, panting and shaking. Midoriya, talk to me. The boy continued to shack and cry as Aizawa spoke. Izuku, you need to tell me what's happening. That seemed to get the boy's attention as he spoke slowly. Hurts lots of BLD lost in breath. He slurred the last words as he finally lost consciousness. SHD, Aizawa pulled out his phone and called Recovery Girl. I need you to prep a room, bullet wound, and lodge shrapnel, as far as I can tell, possibly more. Okay, I've notified the principal. He hung up quickly and grabbed the boy and started carrying him to the school as fast as he could. Izuku opened his eyes, trying to blink away the sleepiness. Before thinking, he quickly jumped up into a defensive position, ready to attack, till someone spoke up. Izuku, calm down. You're in UA with Hitoshi, Deku, Present Mike, and me. Izuku barely registered it, but it was enough to make him relax slightly and just look angry. Deku quickly pulled him into a hug, joined by Shinsou. I told you that if you got injured, I'd kill you. And then you went and got F-shot. You must have a death wish. Izuku quickly came back to earth and hugged his two friends back with a chuckle. Maybe. Aizu, I swear to everything that is holy. If you ever do that again, I'm arresting you myself. Shinsou declared as he detached from the hug. Izuku gasped and turned in Bakugu's hold to stare at Shinsou full on. You wouldn't. Izuku said teasingly, watch me. Izuku yelled as Shinsou made a grab for him. He jumped onto Bakugu, who fell over onto the bed. Kakin, help me. Izuku yelled, still holding onto the boy. I got him. Bakugu yelled, putting Izuku in a hold with Shinsou approaching. They soon started having a tickle fight. Even if Izuku's injuries bothered him slightly, he still played. Yamada and Aizawa watched in fondness until Recovery Girl came in with the principal. As soon as they noticed, the principal, Izuku, went into his sort of sassy, cocky vigilante persona, while Bakugu and Shinsou glared and stayed by the boy. Why, if it isn't the principal of UA? And what do I owe the pleasure? The adults got caught off guard by the sudden change in the boys, but didn't quite show it. Well, you have been shot and needed medical attention. And see, as I am the principal, and you're at me school, I just had to meet you. Izuku tapped his chin and thought. I guess that did happen. Thought I doubt you would just come here to say hi. Izuku said with a serious look on his face. You would be correct, though I believe we should talk in private then. As soon as the principal said that, both of the other boys seemed to go on high alert and glare at the principal. Is that so? Izuku silently nudged both boys to try and make them stop. Then why don't we? All the others stood in shock as the two smiled at each other. After sending the group out, the two continued to just stare at each other and wait for the other to speak. So what did you want to talk about, Principal Nedzu? Izuku asked, finally speaking. Well, I have an offer to make. Izuku waited for him to continue. See, as you are the most known and wanted vigilante, it is obvious that you have seen the horrors and truths of the hero world and are less arrogant. You're not wrong. So, I think it would be in our best interests if you were to help teach the next waves of heroes to make sure they are prepared. Izuku froze in shock as he processed the information. You want me, a wanted vigilante, to help teach the heroes that will be going out into the world and stopping villains and other vigilantes. Nedzu smiled and nodded. Izuku paused again, speaking up. There's something else you're not telling me. You caught me. I do have another part to the offer. And what is it? Izuku asked, a little skeptical. You have no adults in your life that take responsibility for you, correct? Izuku glared but nodded. Well, then it would make things for you easier if you lived with Aizawa, Yamada, and Shinsou, correct? No. Why? I'm not taking that away from Toshi. Izuku stated, simply trying to stand up. He's been with them for a little over half a year, and I'm not taking a family from him. Nedzu pushed him lightly back down onto the bed before continuing. I do not believe the three would agree with that statement, or Bakugo. Izuku looked down to his hands and sighed. If at any point in time I believe something is wrong, I leave. Nedzu nodded his head in understanding, and I get to continue being a vigilante. Might I ask why? For one, if Seishin disappeared out of where people would be confused and think that that cop killed me, which could go bad, Nedzu would be lying if he said he didn't agree with that, and second, I still want to help. That could be arranged. Nedzu cheered as he got up to let the others back in. The two other boys immediately going to Izuku and asking questions. Guys, calm down, I'm fine. Like hell you are. You got shot. Kakin, that wasn't what I was talking about. Izuku cried, smacking the other boy lightly with a chuckle. Okay, here's what's going to happen. Midoriya shall be helping teach the next waves of heroes in the way he wants, paired with Erasure Head. He will also be continuing with his vigilante work. Aizawa and Yamada seemed a little shocked, but didn't say anything. He has also agreed to living with you. Yes. Shinsou yelled and hugged the other boy while flipping of Bakugo Lava Girl. Now he really is my brother. Bakugo grumbled and hit the boy. I thought it would have to have taken more convincing. Aizawa deadpanned, staring at the group. If I feel like anything is to off, I will leave. No strings attached. Izuku declared, looking at the other two adults. Okay, the transition from living on your own with your two friends visiting a lot to living with one of those friends and people who have been chasing you and the other friend over all the time was a little weird and difficult for Izuku. He wasn't used to someone other than Bakugo making him food every now and again. Wasn't used to living with other people in general, actually. I mean, sure, he lived with his mother and father before everything, but that was a lot different than this was. So no, he wasn't used to adults caring or even trying to help him, but luckily everything else had been easy for the most part. When he was a teacher, all he had to do was read about students' quirks and give them a packet on ways they can use it, weaknesses, strengths, ways someone could take them down, and how they needed to change their costumes. He would later hear from Aizawa and Yamada how much the students hated it and didn't think some nobody should tell them what to do, and then they would be expelled from Aizawa's class and a lecture from the other teachers. The being a vigilante part was a lot easier now, too, with less people trying to go after him, since the principal of UA had spoken for him most times. He still had to deal with Endeavor, though, like that would ever stop. His patrols became a little more different and more integrated, so at least at some point Aizawa would be able to check on him and make sure he hadn't died yet. Though it wasn't like he got into much trouble, it had just been chaotic recently. At least that's what he tells himself is. Friends don't agree. It hadn't been a quiet patrol, sadly. With the news saying that the great Seishin was injured and possibly dead, many low-time criminals ended up coming out hiding. Lucky for Izuku, though, he had been meaning to get them out somehow. He just wished it wasn't with getting shot, but what can ya do? He was finishing up patrol with tying up a criminal nice and pretty when he got a call from Izawa. "You've reached Seishin. What's up?" He finished tying up the criminal when he heard a curse from the other side of the phone. He paused, waiting for a reply. Erasure Head. "Talk to me, what's happening?" "Sorry, kid, I won't make it in time." He quickly got out of the alleyway and onto a roof overlooking the city to try and spot the man. "You won't make what is it, Izawa? You gotta talk to me." Izuku almost yelled as he began to look for other life size. "You've got a flamethrower on your tail, and I can't stop him in time. He's looking for you, so you need to get back before he finds you. I won't make it in time if he finds you first because he's closer to you." Izuku's eyes widened and his breath stuttered. "I can change quickly." Izuku hung up and took his bag off. His outfit worked for being able to blend in well, so all he had to do was take his weapons and some padding off before going back down to the street and walking casually. It was empty for the most part. He placed Kami made into his ear that would record anything said and call anyone if something went wrong. "You there?" He jumped a little, but turned around facing the flame hero and another boy that looked to be about his age. He recognized him as Endeavor's youngest. "What can I do for you, Endeavor?" he asked. He let some venom slip into his voice as he glared at the hero. "Watch your tone. I'm looking for Seishin. Has he come around here?" Izuku wanted to almost laugh. Endeavor apparently, since he looked the exact same. Then again, no one had really seen Seishin before until recently. "I haven't, but why would I tell flaming garbage like you?" The younger Todoroki looked shocked but pleased as the other got angrier. "You will not talk to me in that manner." Izuku rolled his eyes and waited until Endeavor was right next to him for him to swing his leg and knock Endeavor down. Then again, I'm a vigilante, so why would I listen to you? Todoroki looked shocked as his father got angrier. The flame hero lifted his hand, sending a burst of flame at Izuku. That mind you would have killed him if he didn't jump and flip over to use Endeavor's face as a springboard. "You son of a beach." Endeavor yelled as he fired again, only for Izuku to dodge again and act fake shocked. "I will have you know my mother was a very nice woman. Now I can't say the same," he said lazily as he pulled out his staff and pointed it at Endeavor. After all, I felt bad for who had to be RTHU. That made the man angrier as he burst into more flames and began firing while hitting some buildings. "You'll pay for that, shrimp." Izuku dodged again and landed right next to younger Todoroki, using him to lean his arm on casually. "You know, I don't think I'm that short, do you?" He locked eyes with the boy who was smirking. "Shoto, attack him." Endeavor yelled, not being able to fire at his own son. Endeavor. "He can't. Illegal quirk usage. And it's not an emergency, since I'm not hurting anyone, so you can't give him permission, my good sir." The younger just looked at him with a quirked eyebrow. "And why would you care about quirk usage, vigilante?" Izuku smirked under his mask before leaning in and whispering into his ear. "Who said I have a quirk?" Before kicking Endeavor back and running away fast enough to get away without them following. Once he was far enough away from them, he pulled out his phone and called Izawa. "You're not dead, are you?" he heard the monotone voice say. "Sadly, no. I'll be back at the house soon. I need to finish the last packet before I sleep." He knew Izawa couldn't see the air quotes, but he didn't need to. "Zuka, get up." He groaned as the person nudged him on the floor, trying to get him up. "I ain't playing this SHD, Zuka, get up." Izuku groaned again, but sat up and glared at Bakugo, who looked blank. "What?" he asked, still a little tired. "You promised to train me, and Einstein more dip SHD." Hearing that, Izuku bolted upright and started changing into training cloths, just a tank top and shorts. "Sorry, Kak, and I forgot." Once he was done, he quickly walked out with Bakugo following. They walked into the living room, finding Shinsou and Izawa sitting in the living room. "Look who's awake," Shinsou joked as he stood up. "Har har har, let's go to the usual place." It was almost time for Shinsou, Izuku, and Bakugo to get ready for the entrance exams. Well, more like the other two, and less Izuku, since he couldn't take them since it wouldn't be fair for the other examines. Izuku thought it was dumb, but didn't complain. "Dad," Izawa sighed and laid down on the couch in exhaustion already. "What, Hitoshi?" he asked as the two problem children walked in looking disheveled. "Tell Izu to spare up, and that dog loves me more." Yamada started laughing from the kitchen as he heard the argument. "No, it an obvious lie. We all know Dog likes Izuku more than the rest of us, even if we hate it," he said, glaring at the said cat that jumped onto Izuku's shoulders. "Thank you, old man." Aizawa glared and tripped Izuku with his capture weapon, making the boy yelp in surprise and fall. "Ha beach." Toshi language. Yamada yelled in a fake gasp. They all calmed down for a minute until there was a knock at the door before it swung open, revealing a pissed, slightly messed up Bakugo with a bruise and busted lip. "Kakin." Izuku bulled head up and grabbed his face, looking him over. "Who did this? Are you okay? Do you have any other injuries? Do you need dash?" Bakugo growled, getting the boy to stop. "The hat got mad again, and we had a fight. Nothing out of the norm, dip, SHD." Izuku glared at him slightly. It wasn't a secret that his mother wasn't the best, and Izuku had offered to house the boy the same amount of times he did to Shinsou. "I'm fine, come on." Izuku dragged the pissed-off teen to his own room, where he always had a fully stocked first aid kit. Aizawa and Yamada watched the two leave before turning to their son. "Does he end up like that a lot, Hitoshi?" The boy made a weird face and nodded slowly. "He used to go to Izu a lot when he was injured until he moved here. So Izu started meeting up with him at the park or at Katsuki's house when his parents are asleep." Yamada looked sadly at the room the two had walked into. "We need to help him then," Yamada declared quietly, with Aizawa nodding his head and pulling out his phone to start the case. "Do you just plan to adopt all of my friends?" Shinsou asked jokingly. "Absolutely," Yamada said with a smile. "Kakin," Izuku said sadly as he had the boy sit on his bed. His room was pretty plain with a few shelves for his creations and analysis and a plain blue bed. "I know, okay," Bakugo looked down sadly. "I know relationships aren't supposed to be like that, and I should have left when you offered booty, don't know, I just..." The boy seemed angry as he spoke with a few tears falling. "Kakin, look at me." The boy looked up slightly only. Meeting the boy's eyes a little, "You're strong, and no one thinks otherwise. You didn't leave because she made it seem that if you did, you'd be punished, but you always got help when you needed it, even if it was just me and Toshi." Izuku fixed him up and hugged the boy for a minute, letting him calm down before they went back out to the living room. "Okay, me and Zashi need to leave and go to the school for the recommendation students. Nedzu said you guys could come." Aizawa said, standing up to get ready. "I have to go anyway, right?" Izuku asked tiredly. "Correct." Izuku sighed heavily and went into his room to change into some presentable cloths. "We'll get around to then," Shinsou said, grabbing onto Bakugo's arm and dragging him into the room. "Hey, let go, but..." Shinsou ignored him and shoved him, having Izuku catch the falling boy. The five had finally made it to UA with Yamada and Aizawa, making the kids stay in the teacher's lounge before they would get Izuku to analyze their quirks. As they sat there, they mostly talked quietly about what they were going to do during the exam. "I don't think I'll get into 1A, though. My quirk isn't for combat." Shinsou sighed as he leaned back. "If you don't get into 1A, Toshi, I'm burning down the school," Izuku said casually. "He won't, but he'll raise hell," Bakugo explained, rolling his eyes at his dramatic friend. They stopped talking as a bone-looking man walked in and looked at them shocked. "I don't think you boys are allowed back here." The man said like a stern father, but still a little confused. "Our parents are teachers," Shinsou stated, simply making Bakugo growl a little and whisper, "Not my parents." "Oh, I apologize. I wasn't aware any of the teachers were married or had children. The young men don't look anything alike." "Adopted," Izuku and Shinsou said at the same time, almost sounding bored about the situation. "I see." The door opened again, revealing Aizawa, who glared at the man, then looked to the three kids. "Izuku, this is Toshinori Yagi. He's a new teacher. You two will talk more in the observation room." He turned around with Izuku, standing before turning back. "You two stay here for a minute. We'll be right back." The two adults and teenager walked out into the hallway, going to the observation room. Before they got there, though, Aizawa stopped them and pointed to Yagi. "Izuku, this is All Might." All Might was about to protest, but Aizawa glared at him. "This is Midoriya, Izuku. He's on the teaching staff as a quirk analyzer and battle teacher. You two will end up working together more often than not, so yes, he needs to know." "But why is young Midoriya a teacher?" "He's only 15. He's been working here since he was 13. He's fine." Aizawa walked away, not answering anything Yagi tried to ask. Izuku walked in, being greeted with a smile or away from the others in the room. He turned and looked at the screens, seeing 4 students in the room ready to start the course. They all watched them go through the course. Izuku quickly noticed that there was one participant he recognized, Todoroki Shudo, but it seemed like he wasn't using his full power. "What's Todoroki's quirk?" Izuku asked, not turning from the screen. "Half fire, half ice. Why Midoriya?" Nedzu asked a little curiously. "Don't you think it's weird that he doesn't use his fire and that he has a scar over his left side?" Izuku turned away this time to look at Nedzu. Izuku recognized the way he acted. It reminded him of Toshi when they first had met at the orphanage. "I see. Anything else?" Izuku thought for a minute about how Endeavor treated people during his job. Anyone he fights, he always goes for the kill or worst injury. He doesn't treat civilians well either. How do we know he's treating his family any better? Nedzen nodded along. Izuku himself had interacted with the youngest sibling a few times, but Endeavor a lot. Shudo glared as he walked through the halls, trying to avoid his father at all costs at this point. His father had been pretty pissed when he didn't use his fire during the test. "What are you doing?" He looked up to see a boy around his age hanging out of the ceiling. "None of your business," he said, about to walk away until he heard his father yell his name. "Seems like you're running from Endeavor." Shudo glared at the boy in front of him until he offered a hand grab on. Shudo looked at the boy confused. "Why?" "Because I can sneak you somewhere, so you can relax for a minute and not have to see your father." Shudo then grabbed his hand without a second thought, and the boy hauled him into the ceiling that was surprisingly clean. "Yeah, don't worry, I get around a lot in here, so I make sure it's clean and well lit." The boy then led him through the ceiling until they came to a ceiling tile marked with a red X. "Heads up, my brothers are in there, too, but they're both really chill and won't say anything." Shudo nodded his head. The boy moved the tile and hopped down into the lit room. "Okay, jump down, and I'll catch you." Shudo hopped down, being caught slightly by the boy, so he landed safely on the ground. "This him?" He turned to see 2 boys sitting on a couch, casually. One with blonde hair and red eyes, while the other had purple hair and purple eyes. "Yep. Todoroki Shudo, meet Bakugo Katsuki and Shinsou Hitoshi. If you prefer us to call you something other than Todoroki, just tell us." Shudo was confused, but nodded his head. "Call me Shudo." The 3 boys nodded. "All right. I never introduced myself. My name's Midoriya Izuku." "If you're all brothers, then why do none of you look alike or have the same surname?" Midoriya laughed a little, while Bakugo seemed offended. "I'm not their brother. They just want me to join their stupid cluster F of a family." Shudo was confused. "You practically lived with me for years. We're family now. We have a connection." Midoriya yelled, getting Shudo to huff a laugh and Shinsou to start laughing hysterically. "Hishi's got you there, lava girl." Shinsou spoke through breaths. "Call me that SHD again, and I won't make you NEF food brain beach." "Bullshit, you'll make me food anyway." Shudo looked over and saw Midoriya smiling fondly as they tried to kill each other before looking over and smiling at Shudo. "Toshi was adopted by our old man first, then me. Next, we're going to add Kakin to our collection of family issues," Midoriya said, trying to sound crazy. "Does you bringing me here mean I've joined the collection?" Shudo asked, actually curious. "Absolutely. You can be our daddy issues. Let me see your phone." Shudo handed over his phone and watched as the boy typed on it before pulling out his own phone and handing Shudo his back. "Oh no, my family issues, daddy issues. What is this? Parent machine broke. Oh, it's hell, mommy issues. Welcome to the cluster F N finally adopted. We need to change it. Parent machine broke's name. He has parents now. Parent machine broke. Change their name to mom machine broke. Mom machine broke. Is this better?" Shudo looked up to see the 2 boys looking at Midoriya with almost horror. "Zuko, what the F?" Midoriya then started laughing, with Shinsou joining in. "I'm confused." After the meeting, the 4 boys began talking more and even hung out a little. Well, when Izuku could kidnap Todoroki without getting caught, it also wasn't long till Todoroki old man was, and that Izuku was a vigilante that his dad hated. Todoroki didn't get it at first, thinking that he was the vigilante's brother or something, but Izuku, along with the others, explained it. It wasn't long till the entrance exam for Bakugo and Shinsou came. Todoroki had been with the group the night before, and they all trained to make sure they were all at their best, though they didn't make Todoroki do much since he seemed tired already. "You both have everything?" Aizawa asked as they all walked out of the door, going to the car to take them to UA. "Yeah, old man, we got everything." Bakugo bit back, rubbing his eyes. He wasn't a morning person after all. "Hurry up then." The three jumped into the car, with Bakugo and Shinsou almost falling back asleep. But Izuku didn't let them as he talked the entire time about villains' quirks he came across in the past week. Once they got there, the two went to the rooms to hear whatever information they needed to know for the tests, while Izuku and Aizawa went to the teacher's lounge. They needed a few things since they both had similar jobs. Their job was to look for any students that didn't have flashy quirks and seemed to have what it took to be a hero and be in Class 1A. Except Izuku was actually going to be on the field. He would be on top of buildings and in the shadows watching the possible students. Izuku would have to jump from place to place to make sure he looked for every possible person that would be a good fit for the class, and who wouldn't. It was going to be especially difficult since 3 spots were already taken by him, Todoroki, and a girl named Yaoyorozu. So far everything was going smoothly. Izuku was bringing in information that all of the judges and teachers could hear, so they knew what was going on and not just from the screens. Nezu had released the zero-pointer not too long ago, and Izuku already noticed a problem. There was a girl that was trapped under some rubble, and the zero-pointer was coming after her almost. He saw 2 people running towards her, and it was Shinsou and Bakugo. He was surprised that they were in the same area, but he already knew what was wrong. "Aizawa, Nezu, they won't be able to get her out in time," he warned, already ready to jump down and help. "What do you mean, Midoriya?" Aizawa asked. Izuku could already hear the panic. "Kaken will be able to get rid of the zero-pointer, or at least distract it, and Toshi should be able to get her to safety, but they need a 3rd person, otherwise they'll get caught in the rubble from the destroyed robot." He was already descending to the ground. "Get down there and help as little as possible. You have permission to act." Izuku hummed and landed, finally able to run over to the 2 now on the ground, while Bakugo was in the air. "Toshi." The boy looked over surprised, but nodded his head. They had practiced something similar. Izuku would lift the rubble and let them get clear, and if something else happened, he would deal with it. Shinsou picked up the girl, while Izuku moved the rubble and made sure no one else was near. He looked back to see the robot exploding with Bakugo on the ground, running to where everyone else was. The only problem being that shrapnel was coming toward them quickly. "Kaken duck." The teen looked up and nodded his head before rolling to behind Izuku. He pulled out the shield he had made and blocked most of the shrapnel coming at them, except one that decided to lodge itself into Izuku's shoulder. He only glared at it before going over to the others to make sure they were all okay. "Is she injured anywhere?" Izuku asked as he walked up, kneeling down to the girl that looked in pain. "She probably broke her ankle, but otherwise only cuts and scraps." Shinsou explained, not moving his eyes from the metal sticking out of Izuku's shoulder. "Shouldn't we pull that out, Zuku?" Bakugo asked, hiding his worry while pointing at the metal. Yeah, probably." Izuku reached up and wrapped his hands around the metal and pulled without even flinching. He then grabbed the gauze in his belt and used them to wrap the wound at the moment. It wasn't clean, but it was better than nothing. "Dad's gonna kick you, but for doing that," Shinsou said, just staring at the now red fabric. "He can't kill me if I die of BLD loss first." Izuku joked, make the other 2 look at him like an idiot. "You're ridiculous, Zuku." The 3 kids were waiting in the teacher's lounge again, waiting for the 2 teachers to take them home. What they didn't expect was to see Tashinori in the room, coughing BLD. "Hey, are you okay?" Izuku asked, walking over with a cloth to clean the BLD. "A young Midoriya. I'm quiet, all right, this is normal," he assured, wiping up the BLD. "Doesn't seem healthy." Shinsou stated before flopping onto the couch with a tired sigh. Yes, it's due to an injury, but I'm quiet, all right, I promise." He tired to assure, again waving his hands. "Whatever you say, extra." Bakugo flopped right next to Shinsou, who only glared playfully before pouncing on him and trying to use him as a pillow before the others started yelling at him. The boys had been waiting for almost 2 weeks now to know where they placed in the test. Aizawa, Yamada, and Izuku hadn't told them anything about their results, and it was honestly starting to PSS them off. "Oh, come on. You can't tell us anything." Shinsou yelled angrily as he shook Izuku, who was only laughing harder. "And no, I'm sorry," he cried out through breaths. Todoroki just watched in confusion at the interactions while Bakugu continued to beat up a punching bag. "I don't get why you guys are so worried," Todoroki said, taking a sip from his water bottle. "Easy for you to say, pretty boy. You got 2 quirks and mine's a middle one." Shinsou yelled, falling to the ground. "Don't be so dramatic. You'll be fine. Lava girl, get your butt over here." Shinsou yelled, even though he was running into the room already. "I told you not to call me that." Bakugu yelled, but stood up anyway. "Shut up and read." They both opened the letters and began reading. It was silent as the other 3 simply watched the interactions. It was a moment before the 2 began shouting and jumping. "I told you guys you would be fine," Izuku said with a teasing smile. The 2 looked at him before tackling him to the ground and yelling at him. UPP-UF knew. He only laughed as the 2 seemed to get even angrier. "Of course I knew. I'm one of your teachers," Izuku said, already picking the 2 up easily and just holding them. "Put me down, but..." Bakugu yelled, thrashing his arms, trying to get free from Izuku's grasp. "Never." It wasn't long before the school year was starting, and the group already knew it was going to be complicated. Bakugu, Shinsou, and Todoroki had to act as if they had never met Izuku, Shoyuta, or Yamada ever in their life, but Izuku didn't have to since he would likely be friendly to everyone. "Okay, remember, you don't know us. We don't know you got it," Aizawa said, pointing his finger at Todoroki, Shinsou, and Bakugu. Todoroki was there since he convinced his dad that he was leaving extra early. "We know, old man. Let's just go." Bakugu said, already walking. The issue was that Izuku, Aizawa, and Yamada all had to be there early while the other 3 didn't. It didn't take them long to get there since Aizawa and Yamada had been living close to the school since they'd gone there. When they got there, the 3 went to the classroom while the others went to the teacher's lounge. When they walked in, no one else was really there except All Might and Cementos. Aizawa and Yamada went to their desks, while Izuku laid on the couch for a few before the other teachers began showing up. Most of them just needed to organize lesson plans, but Izuku didn't really need to do anything, seeing as he would be helping Aizawa and All Might mostly. "Ready to go, kid?" Aizawa asked, kicking Izuku slightly. The teen pushed his foot but stood up with a smile. "You got it, old man." Aizawa sighed again, but didn't say anything as they began walking to the classroom. Just like everyone else, though, he had to wear his uniform, which consisted of a black medical mask, black baseball cap, a dark green hoodie with black lines going over it, like the top of his hero costume, black gloves with metal knuckles, and black boots and leggings all padded. They hadn't opened the door yet, but Izuku could already tell that the class was rowdy just by the noise. He looked to Aizawa, who was already in his sleeping bag laying down. "Can I go in first and scare them?" he asked with a smile. Aizawa looked to him before nodding. After getting approval, he jumped up and grabbed onto one of the slightly open ceiling tiles and pulled himself up and into the ceiling. Once in there, he looked around for a moment until he saw the red 0 marking where he should enter. Ever since Todoroki had been in there, he added fairy lights and other markings. He walked over and silently moved it out of the way. He then hooked his legs so that they were still in the ceiling, but the rest of him would hang upside down and into the classroom. When he saw that only a few people noticed him and looked scared, he almost laughed, but he kept quiet and simply watched for a second until he decided it was right. "You guys need to work on being aware of your surroundings." Everyone who didn't notice him either jumped, screamed, or both. "Well, nice to meet you too." Before any of them could ask who he was, Aizawa opened the door and walked in. It took almost all of you more than 10 seconds to notice him, and then you did nothing. It also took that time for everyone to even quiet down. "My name's Aizawa Shoyuta. I'm your homeroom teacher." He clicked something, making cases appear, but these on and meet at ground beta 2. Everyone looked at him a little, while Todoroki smiled and Bakugu and Shinsou shook their heads. He hoped down and followed after Aizawa, almost like a group of people weren't staring at him. "So what are we doing?" Izuku asked once they were far enough away. We'll be doing a quirk test. Your job is to watch them and write down everything. What about the boys? Izuku had a habit of calling them that. You already know everything, just write it later. He nodded his head, running ahead a little to look for a good spot to observe them. So far everything was going smoothly. Everyone was doing well even with the threat looming over them. He noticed every now and again that Todoroki would look to him, and Izuku would always wave and smile back. It was nearing the end, and Izuku had pretty much seen everyone and what they could do. The only person, though, that he didn't like was a kid named Mineta. He hoped down from his spot, shocking some of the others again, and walked over to Aizawa. Here you go, everything I've seen. He handed him quite a few stacks of paper before sitting on the ground next to him. Good work. The group looked at them a little confused, seeing as Izuku had never introduced himself. But he didn't care, it was a little fun after all. Aizawa-sensei. Who is that? A kid Izuku recognized as Ida Tenya. You don't need to know, get back to the tests. Once everyone had finished, and Aizawa revealed that no one was going to be expelled, they were allowed to go to lunch. Since Izuku was telepathically a teacher, he didn't need to go to the lunchroom, but he decided it would be fun to go in there and cause a little chaos. He walked in already getting some looks, seeing as he had all of his weapons on him, in uniform, but was a little short. He went a little further and grabbed some food before seeing Todoroki, Bakugo, and Shinsou sitting together with the girl from the entrance exam. He remembered her name was Uraraka. He silently walked behind them before popping out. Well, hello, my students. How's lunch? Some of them jumped, but Todoroki simply nodded his head. Oh, hi. We never got to learn your name, mister. Uraraka asked, still calming herself down. You could just call me Seishin, Miss Uraraka. He said in a teasing voice. How do you know my name? She asked, sounding a little scared. Just like I know Todoroki's, Bakugo's, and Shinsou's. I'm one of the teachers. He said with a smile, even though she couldn't see it. You seem young for a hero, though. He leaned down closer, so only she and the others could hear him. Now who said I was a hero? He then stood up and started walking away. Have fun at lunch. See you in class soon. Throughout the day, Izuku mostly stayed up in the ceiling. He had found an old area up there that he decided to decorate into his own little area. He had been working on the packets and told Aizawa to tell him when his next class was, and he had just received it. He jumped out of the ceiling and began following All Might silently to see how long it would take him to notice. It took a while since they had finally made it to the door. You know, All Might, you're about as aware of your surroundings as they are. All Might jumped a little but laughed when he saw who it was. Sorry, young Dash. Seishin here, please. Right, Seishin. Sorry, I didn't realize you were following me. All Might then entered the room and explained what they were doing. Izuku followed and wearing a smirk under his mask. Okay, that's it. Who are you? He looked over and saw a kid named Kaminari yelling at him. All Might looked to Izuku before to the class again. I wasn't aware they saw you before. Oh yeah, I was helping Aizawa too. I see. Well, you'll find out later. For now, grab these and head to Ground Beta 1. So All Might, what are you going to have them do? Izuku asked, walking backwards to face him. Well, I planned on having them fight each other, but what do you think? You have been doing this longer. He thought about it for a minute before coming up with an idea. What if they fight me? He asked with a sadistic smile. Are you sure, young Seishin? I'm not aware of your past training. Well, I'm sure, trust me. That's how they ended up here with the group in their costumes, with Izuku almost jumping with excitement. Hello, young heroes. We'll be doing battle training today. Everyone began asking questions, but All Might quickly quieted them down. You'll all be drawing lots to see what group will be playing the heroes and who the villains. So we're fighting each other? Uraraka asked, sounding almost scared. No, of course not. You will be fighting young Seishin here. So we're fighting each other? Uraraka asked, sounding almost scared. No, of course not. You will be fighting young Seishin here. But isn't that dangerous? Ida shouted. Then again, Izuku never did look like much. Trust me, this isn't fair. The group seemed shocked as Izuku spoke. After all, once we're done, you'll wish you fought each other. The first group was up, and Izuku would be lying if he didn't say he was a little excited. It had been a while since he was able to fight someone with a new interesting quirk, and the class was full of them. We're so F, Shinsou said once he found out they were fighting Izuku. The class had heard him, though. What do you mean? I mean, sure, he seems a little scary, but that's it. Mina said, "You're telling me none of you know who he is?" Momo walked up and began speaking. "From what I've heard, he's known as Seishin, a used-to-be-wanted vigilante that has been aligned with UA for almost 3 years now, but has been active for almost 8. The last the public had seen of him was when Endeavor was after him, though a lot of people thought he was dead not too long ago." Shinsou nodded along with her, but the others seemed confused. So, he has a long track record of never losing. Only time he got close was when he was attacked one day, but then he appeared the next night. Then he had been in a fight and was helping Present Mike and Erasure Head where he got pieces of Debra logged into him and then got shot, only to show up again and be perfectly fine, guys like a truck. After that, the class seemed almost scared. "Okay, who's going first?" Izuku asked, clapping his hands together. They all jumped, but of course it was Bakugu who wanted to go first. "My team will." Izuku smirked, not that anyone could see it though. "Fantastic. And you guys are playing the villains, right?" He nodded his head. "Great. Go ahead into the building, and I'll see you there." Ito was trying to yell that they in fact didn't want to go first, but Izuku and Bakugu only tuned him out. "Excuse me, Sensei Seishin." Izuku turned to Mina, who looked a little shaken up. "What's up, Miss Ishido?" "Mina's fine, actually. Booty's it true you got shot before?" Izuku smiled, even more knowing that Shinsou had made them scared of him. "Yeah, a couple times. Why?" That made some of them even more shocked than before. "And you're a vigilante, right?" Kaminari asked this time. "Yep. Been doing this for almost 8 years now. Though the last time I got shot, it wasn't a bad guy. It was actually a cop. All the chaos had scared him, and he acted without thinking. So I don't blame him." He then turned around to get ready to go into the R and start the fight. Izuku stood outside the building doing a few stretches while he thought of what they would do. "Kaken loves to go head first and get it over with, especially with me. So he'll come running and leave Ito with the bomb likely on the last floor of the building hero team. Enter now." He smiled again before flexing his fingers slightly to make claws appear out of his fingertips. It had been something he added recently, so he was happy to try it out. He began climbing up the building side, already hearing Bakugi yelling. When he came to the same floor as the blonde, he threw himself through the window and rolled until he was almost in front of the other and smirked as he landed. "Well, Kaken, fancy meeting you here," was all he said before he began fighting the blonde. He decided to hold back a little with them since he didn't want them getting super hurt after all. He blocked another powered punch from Bakugu before he grabbed on his wrist and flipped him onto his back and pinned him to the ground. "You know, Kaken, we have to stop meeting like this," he joked before hitting a pressure point that made the blonde pass out. He tied him up before standing up and walking to where he knew Ito was. "Bakugu is out." He smiled and picked up the pace, starting to run, getting more excited. He made it to the room and quietly hid behind a pillar so that Ito wouldn't be able to see him. Ida had been talking, trying to get into character, so it was a good distraction for Izuku to climb the wall again and the ceiling before dropping down onto Ida and knocking him down. He tied up the teen and got off of him and touched the bomb. "Heroes win. Come back to the observation area." "That was very impressive, Seishin. I see you are quite talented," Ida complimented as they were back in the observation room. "Thanks, Ida, but you were pretty good too. You just need to observe your surroundings is all." The next group was Shinsou and Uraraka, both not exactly ready for it, as they were playing the heroes this time. "What do you think we should do, Shinsou?" Uraraka asked, sounding just as nervous as she looked. "I'm not sure. He knows our quirks and probably how to get around them. He also is a fantastic fighter and thinks on his feet. If we put him in a situation where he can't do that, then maybe we can win." "I'm all ears." Heroes team enter. Uraraka used her quirk and floated to the top of the building. They were dividing and conquering. Uraraka starts at top, while Shinsou starts at bottom. Izuku watched them from one of the other buildings with a smile. It looked like they planned on cornering him, but without him in the building, it would be hard. He looked again and saw that they were getting close to the bomb. He pulled out his staff and aimed one end at the building and clicked a button, making it shoot out a small grapple. He hooked the other end, where he was before he turned the remaining rest of the pole to the side, creating a zip line. He flew across it before entering through the open window. "It's good to see you, Sensei Seishin," Uraraka said as she hid behind one of the pillars. You lost the element of surprise. Izuku said with a smirk. Did I? You dash gotcha. Shinsuo jumped out from behind the pillar, instead of Uraraka wearing his voice changer. Damn it. He watched silently as Shinsuo got closer. Izuku could feel himself fighting. One of his fingers twitched, activating the claws before they sliced into his leg. Shinsuo jumped a little hearing the noise and seeing the BLD from his leg. Guess you forgot about these, Toshi. He whispered before he pounced on a Shinsuo, and the two began fighting. Izuku had put the claws away so the other didn't get hurt, but he was still fighting fiercely. The other was quickly taken down after that, and the timer went off. Villains win. He helped Shinsuo back up on his feet, but the other seemed more worried about Izuku's bleeding leg. Izu, you need to get that fixed. Shinsuo whispered, so Uraraka couldn't hear them. It's fine. He opened his utility belt and pulled out a few medical supplies and began cleaning and wrapping the wound. See, all better. Now let's go. They walked back to the class, seeing most of them in different states of shock and looking at Izuku with worry. What? Why is everyone looking at me? He asked, a little confused. You stabbed yourself in the leg. Todoroki pointed out. He didn't show the worry, but Izuku could see it. It happens sometimes. Next group. At the end of battle training, everyone except Izuku, who seemed even more excited, had lost their fights, which didn't surprise Izuku in the slightest, but they were still learning, so he didn't blame them. That guy is so fast. I wonder what his quirk is. Kaminari said as they began undressing from their costumes. Yeah, maybe it had something to do with energy. I mean, Kaminari, you shocked him, and he walked it off like it was nothing. Zero pointed out, thinking to the fight. Kaminari and Jiro were up next for the fights, and they were a little nervous. They were playing the heroes in this one, while Izuku was the villain. So far, there hadn't been any pattern in the way that Izuku fought or planned. Each group had their own special way of losing. So Kaminari, I'm going to use my quirk and listen to where he and the bomb are, and then you use your quirk and shock him, and I'll touch the bomb. Kaminari nodded along with Jiro. They went into more detail until it was their time to go into the building. They walked into the building looking around for clues when there was a noise above them. In the vents. Jiro yelled, making Kaminari use some of his power to shock the vents. When they did, a small object fell out. Jiro paled a little and pulled Kaminari out of the way. The object then flashed before there was smoke surrounding them. Don't use your quirk. We can't see each other. Kaminari nodded his head, even though she couldn't see it. You know, she turned expecting to see Seishin there, but there was no one. You should have used your quirk to listen for me. Next thing she knew, she was passed out on the ground. Kaminari turned, hearing the fall, and running over. He saw Jiro on the ground and moved her out of the way before using his quirk around him. There was a grunt, and he thought he won until the smoke disappeared, revealing a smirking Seishin. Nice idea. He walked forward with electricity still seeming to dance on him, but it didn't work. I don't really remember anything after that other than waking up with you guys by me. Kaminari explained with a sad sigh. Bakugo looked at the group before walking out of the room. He was halfway down the hall when he noticed someone behind him. You might as well come out, Zuko. He heard the other giggle before walking next to Bakugo. What do you want, nerd? Just wanted to check up on you, Kakin. Are you feeling okay? Bakugo knew what he was asking. He may have been with Izuku, Shinsuo, Aizawa, and Yamada most of the time, but he still had to be at home. Fine. Nothing new, just the usual. Izuku hummed in understanding and kept walking next to the blonde. You gonna make any new friends? He could almost hear the smirk in the other boy's voice. Hell no. Those extras are annoying as hell. The other boy started walking backwards in front of Bakugo. Really? Because it looked like you almost wanted to talk to Kirishima, Mina, Siro, and Kaminari. Izuku teased, making the other blush and angry. Shut it. Excuse me. Is it true that All Might and even the once vigilante Seishin are teachers here? One of the news people asked as they shoved a microphone into the boys' faces. Oh, I'm not in the hero course, so I'm not sure. Sorry, ma'am, but we're almost late to class. Izuku grabbed Bakugo's and Shinsu's hand and started dragging them through the crowd of reporters, even though they were still shouting at them. Once they made it to the front of the gate, Aizawa and Yamada were standing there looking pissed. Normally the three would have gone with them, too, but they wanted to walk. Izuku sent a nod to them as they finally walked inside the building. He waved them goodbye as he went to the teacher's lounge to change into his costume. Once he was done, he went to the class and didn't see Aizawa there. "Good morning, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Erasure Head's going to be late for now, so why don't I answer some of your questions?" he said, sitting on top of the desk with a smirk under his mask. A few people cheered while others seemed to begin to think of questions to ask. "Fantastic! Raise your hands, though." People raised their hands, and Izuku called on Kaminari. "How'd you get caught?" he shouted, almost jumping out of his seats. Izuku smiled and tilted his head. "Well, it was after I helped Erasure Head and Present Mike with a villain and collapsing building. I had walked out, and an officer shot me. I was already losing a lot of BLD that I was about to pass out, so I ran, and Erasure Head followed me. Then he took me here, and we came up with a way for me to still be a vigilante, but not get caught." Izuku explained casually, though he could see the shock written on all of their faces except the ones that already knew that. "What's your quirk?" Momo asked this time. "Well now, I can't tell you that, but if you find out my real identity, then I'll tell you." Just as he said, that Aizawa walked in with a sigh, not even acknowledging Izuku. "Everyone in your seats." Izuku hopped off his desk and sat on the office chair in the room. "Today we'll be talking about Dash." When lunchtime rolled around, Izuku decided to sit in the teacher's lounge and take a nap. He hadn't gotten much sleep the night before, and he was kind of bored anyway. He was laying on the couch when an alarm started going off, and he heard people screaming and running. "What the hell is that?" he yelled as he jumped up and pulled out his staff, ready to use. "It's an intruder alarm," Vlad King explained, looking out the windows. "It's the media," Aizawa said before leaving to deal with them along with Present Mike. "The students are going to be in a panic if we don't stop them," Cementos said, seeing students running in a panic. Izuku ran out of the room and into the sea of students when he saw Ida trying to yell to people. "Ida!" The teen looked to him in shock. "Have Uraraka hit your hand, and I'll help guide you where everyone can see you." Ida nodded and yelled to Uraraka, who quickly understood and tapped him. When he was up in the air, Izuku used his staff to sort of fling him to one of the walls. "Everyone, please calm down. This is unbecoming of UA students. It's only the media." It got quiet, but they didn't seem to believe him. Izuku rolled his eyes and used his staff to get to the wall and used one of the claws on his hand to hang off the wall almost. "He's telling the truth. Everyone go back to your classes until this is over." People recognized him as one of the teachers and began calmly going back to their classes. "Uraraka, release Ida." Izuku grabbed onto Ida so he didn't slam against the ground and lowered him to the ground instead before he jumped and rolled to the floor. "Good job for handling that calmly, Ida." The teen blushed and bowed. "Thank you, Seishin sensei. I wouldn't have been able to do anything without your help." Izuku chuckled and patted him on the shoulder. "You would have been fine besides. Your class prez, so don't worry about it." Ida smiled and nodded his head as they made their way back to the class. "Today we will be heading somewhere. Get your costumes on and head to the buses. Everyone please get in," Ida shouted while Izuku went ahead and sat near the front. Once everyone was in, they all started talking about random things or seeming to take a nap. Izuku got bored, so he quietly climbed up to the railing on the top of the bus and hung up there while he listened. "Oh, come on, man. You have a great quirk," Kaminari defended with others nodding. "Thanks, man, but not really. It's only good for up-close attacks." Izuku let his hands go and hung upside down, scaring most of them. "That might be true, but your quirk is still good. You could be a shield, a battery ram. You can even make your punches harder. It's a good defense and offense," Izuku complimented before going fully to the ground and deciding to sit next to Todoroki, who seemed happy to let the others sit there. "Actually, Seishin sensei, just Seishin is fine. Of course, and call me Tsu. But what is your quirk exactly? We've been trying to guess for a while now, but haven't gotten anything." "Well, that's the point. I'm a vigilante. You shouldn't know my name or anything. Technically, I'm still illegal, but since I work with UA, no one can arrest me either." Izuku T's sighed, eyeing Aizawa. "We're here." As they entered, Izuku stood next to 13 and talked to them while waiting for the class. "Where's All Might?" Aizawa whispered to the two. "He ran out of time this morning, so he can't be here." 13 explained, making them both roll their eyes. Welp, I'm gonna chill in the middle, call if you need me. Izuku ran down the stairs to relax. He could see them talking about what would happen during the training, but Izuku knew he wouldn't be able to do much. There was a noise next to him. He turned, seeing a black mass appear along with a hand. He stood in shock before activating his shield. Villains! Izuku jumped back as more people began to emerge from the portal in the center. 13. Get the kids out of here. Seishin, go with them. Izuku smirked under his mask as he dodged one of the villains. Not gonna happen. He punched the person in the nose, making them go down as he began to fight others. What's a hero doing down here? They weren't on the schedule. The supposed ringleader spoke as Aizawa joined the fight. You are correct. Only 13, Erasure Head, and All Might were on the list. Izuku listened to them speak. If they thought All Might was supposed to be there then, they had to have a way to beat him. It doesn't seem he's here though, and they're trying to escape Kurogiri. Deal with them. Izuku's eyes widened as the portal person left and appeared at the front. SHD, SHD, SHD. Izuku got away and ran to the front in time to see Ida leaving and Kurogiri teleporting some of the students. He jumped up and slammed his shield into Kurogiri, who dodged. You are not on the schedule. Who are you? Izuku smirked, falling into his vigilante persona. Oh, you don't know little ol' me. And here I was thinking I was popular. He slammed into the villain again, sending him back away from the other students. It seems you're stronger than expected. He teleported away again as Izuku grunted. Are you all okay here? He could see that 13 was injured, but the others seemed okay. I think so. He could see Uraraka close to tears. Uraraka, look at me. She looked up with some tears. He pulled down his mask, showing her his full face. You're going to be okay, got it. Now help 13 and any other students that come here. She was shocked, but nodded her head. He nodded once before running back down to the middle of the building. Once he got back and started taking down more villains, he noticed the person that was the ringleader seemed a little anxious. What's wrong, baddie? Something making you nervous? Izuku shouted as he got closer while taking down more villains. You're an unknown player, a simple NPC with secrets. He then felt the ground under him disappear before he reappeared in front of the man. Ah. If you wanted me this bad, you could have just asked. Izuku pulled out his staff and swung it at the man. The man dodged slightly, but aimed an open hand at Izuku's neck. Hey, that's a no-no hand, man. He yelled as he dodged again. That's it. Kurogiri. Bring out the Nomu. Izuku jumped back again, seeing Tsu, Mineta, and Shinsou near the shore. Bring it, hand, man. He shouted, trying to keep the attention on him so they wouldn't notice the students. The ground shook as a portal opened. He could see a dark figure begin to come out of the portal. He didn't get time to think, though, as it raced towards him, making him jump up and over the creature. Though it didn't buy him any time as it grabbed onto his leg and slammed him into the ground. Izuku. He heard someone shout as he blanked for a moment. He was able to move out of the way, though, as the creature let go for a second. Oh, come on, hand man. That wasn't very nice, was it? He could feel some BLD going down his face, and his ankle hurt slightly. He saw the creature, standing still, seeming to wait for orders. That's it. You're right. Maybe I should aim for your teacher instead. Noma get dash. He was cut off as Izuku ran up and punched him in the jaw, sending him to the ground. Stay down. He put his staff away, but never turned his back to the villain or the creature. He flexed his fingers, making the claws appear, and turned to the portal man. Tell me what you're doing here, or he gets it. He pointed one of his hands down, making it easy to get to the other man's throat. You won't. Heroes don't kill. Izuku smirked. Good thing I'm not a hero now, talk. We came here to kill All Might. He isn't here, so we might as well kill a few kids, though you've made that difficult. Isn't that right, Shigaraki? Izuku saw the man move before feeling pain in his chest. He somehow got enough time to decay parts of his costume and a little of his chest. You're right. The man's words were a little slurred as he spoke. Time for some payback. Nomu, kill him. Izuku's eyes widened as he felt something pull him. He had hoped it was Aizawa, but he was wrong as he was slammed into the ground again. This is just rude. He used his claws to slash at the creature's chest and arm, making it let go as he leapt away, ending up next to Aizawa, who had finished off the other villains. Kid, you need to leave. That thing is trying to kill you. I know. You deal with Ringleader and any stray students. I got Big Bird. Before Aizawa could protest, he jumped at the creature that had healed. Over here, big man, he shouted, getting the creature's attention again. Izuku had been hitting and dodging the bird monster for a while now, or what seemed like a while. Izuku slipped up, though ending with him crushed under the monster and Aizawa down for the count. You know, for an unknown NPC, you've been fun. Who are you? Izuku coughed. His mask and hat had already fallen off. You want to know that bad? Well, Handman. My name's Seishin. The man jumped a little. Really, I know a lot of people that would like you dead. What's your real name, then? Izuku smirked. He twisted and used his shield like a knife and cut the creature's head off with one swift motion and stood up once it moved. You want to know my name? Fine. He pulled out his staff and stood straight up, almost like he wasn't in pain or injured. My name's Midoriya, Izuku. I'm a vigilante and I'm quirkless. I am here. All Might fought the creature while Izuku got Aizawa to safety by carrying him up the steps. He set him down and was about to leave when someone grabbed onto his arm. Seishin. Wait. He saw Mineta grabbing onto him and quirked an eyebrow. You're quirkless. You would die out there. Izuku smirked and glared. Really? I can kick your butt easily. You want to fight Handman or Big Bird down there? The other teen seemed frozen. Exactly. Get Aizawa help and stay. Here. He jumped back down into the fight and immediately targeted Shigaraki. As they fought, he saw Todoroki, Katsuki, and Kirishima helping All Might from the sidelines. He knocked the villain down before jumping and landing next to them. Kaken. Shudo. Kirishima. How has your day been? Mine's honestly kind of painful at the moment. Bakuga gave him a look and knew he was still in vigilante mode. Thought you were supposed to pretend not to know us. Izuku chuckled and shook his head. Well, since most of them know my name and that I'm quirkless, I thought, what's the point? So now I do what I want. He heard Shigaraki scream and sighed. Of course the guy screamed when his creature flew out the building. Speaking of doing what I want, be right back. He ran back and punched Shigaraki in the jaw again. You sure scream a lot, don't you? The man yelled again and lunged at Izuku, only grabbing onto his shoulder before a bullet hit Shigaraki in the shoulder. I've returned with heroes. The teachers finally arrived as the villains left. Izuku glared at the portal before he felt himself stumble slightly. Izuku. He looked as someone caught him, seeing Todoroki. Are you okay? Izuku smiled a little. You're my knight in shining armor. Izuku saw Todoroki blush hard and glare, though it didn't last long as he began coughing and BLD left his mouth. Oh, that's fun. I probably have a punctured lung. That was the last thing Izuku said before he passed out. Izuku woke up a little drowsy and looked around the room, seeing white walls. He sat up fully and looked around more. There was another bed next to him, and the person seemed to be awake. Without thinking, he stood up, though he felt a slight ache in his legs. Izuku lay back down. He looked at the person and realized it was Aizawa. You were injured pretty badly. Izuku huffed before he walked over to Aizawa's bed and stood near it. You're okay. Aizawa was about to say something, but he saw Izuku's eyes and knew he wasn't very lucid at the moment. Thought I wasn't able to protect you. Aizawa moved a little and patted the bed. Come on, kid, lay down. Izuku nodded and practically fell into the bed before he grabbed and held onto Aizawa like his life depended on it. Kiyama, can you take over my class today? The female hero looked confused before her eyes settled on Izuku, who was still asleep and grabbing onto Aizawa for dear life. Are you sure? I can stay with the kid. Aizawa shook his head. He's woken up almost every night screaming. He won't let me go. Don't want him waking up with me not there. Kiyama nodded in understanding as she left the room. Aizawa turned as he heard a small whimper from next to him. It's okay, kid, I'm here. He pulled the younger closer and felt him calm down. The class was nervous when they entered the classroom and saw Midnight sitting there instead of Aizawa and Seishin, or Midoriya they guessed. Where's Izu? Shinsou asked quietly enough so only himself, Katsuki, and Todoroki could hear. Your dad's with him still. Apparently, he hasn't been able to sleep well, and it isn't helping his injuries. She pulled out a pass and began writing on it here. You three can go sit in there for your classes. I know you were going to ask. The three thanked her before going to Recovery Girl's office. The three entered and saw Izuku asleep, but not Aizawa, who looked worried. Oi, how's the nerd? Katsuki asked, pulling a chair over with the others. He's tired, keeps waking up jumpy. Katsuki and Shinsou nodded their heads since they were used to it after a bad night. He'll be like that for a while here. Shinsou reached over and slowly made Izuku let go of Aizawa before dragging him over to them. Go teach the class. We can handle him. Aizawa seemed like he wasn't going to consider it, but agreed and left the three. This isn't funny because... Todoroki whispered with a glare at the blonde. What are you talking about? This is hilarious. Katsuki tried holding back his laughter with Shinsou doing the same. The two were laughing because at the moment Izuku was clinging to Todoroki like his life depended on it and sitting on his lap, while Todoroki had a hard blush. This is pretty funny. Todoroki glared at him again, making them laugh harder. Once lunchtime rolled around, Aizawa walked in giving the three a lunch and an extra for when Izuku woke up. How is he? Aizawa asked this time. All four of them were on the bed this time with Todoroki with Izuku, since he hadn't let go of the other boy yet. He's fine now that half and half is holding him, Katsuki teased, receiving another glare from the other as he left. Aizawa looked between the two before glaring at Todoroki. Hurt him and you're dead. Shinsou and Katsuki started laughing harder, while Todoroki looked a little shocked and scared. It was getting to the end of lunch when there was a knock on the door. Shinsou stood up and opened it, a little shocked to see the class standing there. Shinsou, you've been here the entire time? Kaminari asked, a little confused. Yeah, why are you all here? The class looked around a little nervous. We wanted to make sure Seishin was okay. He was really hurt last time we saw him. Shinsou stared at them for a moment. You guys can call him Midoriya, you know that, right? And he's fine. You'll see him tomorrow. The class all nodded before leaving, though a few lingered just to make sure. Izuku had come back the next day with a few bandages still on, but otherwise seeming pretty normal. The class noticed pretty quickly, though, that he was a lot more quiet and a lot less sassy and teasing. Katsuki and Shinsou knew why. It was pretty obvious this would happen after the class knew his real name, and that he was Quirkless. Okay, that's a kid. Izuku looked to Aizawa, confused as the man picked him up off the couch. Go to lunch and talk to the students. Izuku tried to jump out of the man's hold. Nope, not happening. Izuku jumped out of the man's grasp, but didn't run. Aizawa usually had fun messing around with the kid, but he could tell that he wasn't messing around at the moment. Kid. Izuku looked at him like a scared animal. What's wrong? Izuku got out of a defensive pose and rubbed his arm. What if they don't like me? Aizawa didn't say anything. They all knew me as Seishin, the vigilante who could beat anyone. But now they know I'm just Midoriya Izuku, some quirkless kid that's in over his head. Aizawa sighed and pulled the kid into a hug. Izuku, you and Seishin are the same person. You're both strong and help anyone you meet. They won't see you any different. He felt the kid relax in his hold. Now, why don't we properly introduce you? You're a student this year, after all. Izuku had actually almost forgotten that. He may have been an assistant teacher for a while, but he was still a student. Fine. Everyone was back in the classroom now, since lunch was over. They saw Aizawa there, but not Izuku. Aizawa-sensei. He looked to Uraraka. Is Seishin sensei okay? Yeah, where is he? The class voiced their own worries. Aizawa sighed and stood up. Everyone quiet. Once the class was silent, he spoke again. I would like you all to meet your classmate. You can come in. The class was silent as the door opened and a teen walked in. He stood in front of the class and nervously rubbed the back of his head. Hi, my name is Midoriya Izuku, but you all know me as Seishin. I'm your classmate. It was silent for a moment, making Izuku even more nervous. What? Most of the class shouted, making the teen jump. After that, it devolved into chaos for a moment. Quiet. Aizawa shouted before turning to Izuku. Do you want to answer questions? Izuku nodded his head. Okay. Raise your hand if you have a question. A good portion of the class raised their hand. Aizawa picked Uraraka first. So, you're actually our classmate. How come you haven't been doing activities with us? Izuku chuckled. Well, I've been an assistant teacher for almost 4 years now, and I've been a vigilante for longer. I have more experience than you guys. So there wasn't a need at the moment for me to do it with you guys, if almost every night I was out doing something similar. A few hands went down. Shoji was picked next. How did you become a teacher? Izuku had to think for a second. Well, Erasure Head and Present Mike had found my identity and had known for a week maybe. Then there was an accident, and I ended up there to help save some civilians. I had gotten caught in some rubble and was injured while helping a little girl, so I was losing BLD quickly. When I went back outside, a cop ended up shooting me in the panic. He saw some people gasp. I needed medical attention, so me and Erasure Head ran from the scene, and he took me here. Nedzu ended up coming to see me and came up with a plan. I would work as a teacher than a student so that I was protected by UA, and so I could get a license to save people. Kaminari was picked next. You're quirkless, right? Izuku nodded his head. Yep, which also means I'm not technically a vigilante. To be a vigilante, you have to use your quirk without a license. Since I don't have a quirk, I can't be arrested for it. But I also can't run around saying I'm quirkless, since it could make helping people more difficult and make more villains target me and others I know. This time Ina spoke out. Wait, so you have other people that know you're a vigilante? Izuku smiled and nodded his head. Yes, you all know them actually. They got a few more gasps and people to look around. I've known Kakin, or you guys call him Bakugu, since I was little. Our moms used to be friends, so we grew up together. And Toshi, or Shinsou, I've known him since I was young too. We grew up in the same area. They've both known I was a vigilante since we were 9. The class looked at them shocked. Izuku smirked this time though, and Shudo, or Todoroki, has known me since the recommendation student test and has known I'm a vigilante since the beginning of the year. The class dissolved into more chaos, though, as now the three were receiving more questions while some commented on how amazing Izuku had been. Maybe them knowing wasn't terrible. Even though it hadn't been long since the USJ, it didn't mean they got a break. It actually meant the opposite since the sports festival would be approaching and quickly. Seishin sensei. Izuku looked up from his notebook to see Uraraka, Ida, Tsu, Shinsou, and Todoroki standing in front of him. Are you participating in the sports festival? He chuckled a little and closed his notebook. You all can call me Midoriya or Izuku now. No need for sensei or anything either. But no, I won't. It wouldn't be fair, and I'm technically a teacher here too. But you all should do your best either way. He pumped his fist into the air, with some of the others joining him. Izuku was excited for the sports festival. He may not be competing, but he was still excited to watch his friends compete. After all, he was curious about his 3 favorites and how they would act. Katsuki focused a lot on his quirk, even though Izuku had told him to train without. He was a great quirkless fighter too, but he wasn't the best. Todoroki only ever uses ice. He didn't ever use the other half of his quirk, and Izuku knew why. But now would be a great time to change that. Shinsou, on the other hand, was interesting. He was a great fighter and had beaten the 2 other boys in fighting on several occasions during training. Not always, but a lot. He also was able to get people off guard and use his quirk. If Izuku was being honest, he kind of hoped Shinsou won. He honestly expected better from Katsuki, not the usual y'all SCK I'm better attitude. But that's what he saw when the other classes stood in front of the door. You're 1A. I expected the supposed best class to be better than you all. He recognized the person from the files, Monama Nito from class 1B, able to copy quirks. How about you get out of my way, extras? Katsuki glared, making some move out of the way, but Monama didn't. How about you make me? Izuku could see a fight getting ready and hopped off the desk and pulled up his mask and covered his face. Ladies, please, you're both pretty. That got everyone's attention. Some seemed confused as to who he was, but others quickly realized and left. And who are you? Their mascot. Izuku laughed a little at that, surprising the other people there. Nope, I'm one of their teachers, but you can call me Seishin. The others seemed to realize and backed up a little. Sure, like some short stack is some hardcore vigilant dash. He was cut off as Izuku pulled out his staff and swept his feet out from under him. Hey, I'm not that short. Izuku giggled out before crouching down to the blonde. Besides, if you really want to prove something, wait for the festival. Okay, copycat. Soon everyone else left, including the blonde who grumbled and stomped away. "Hey Zuko, want to join us for lunch?" Shinsou asked, gesturing to the group from before. "Sure." He skipped over to the group, and they all immediately started chatting. Finally, the day of the sports festival arrived, and the class was buzzing with energy. Though Izuku wouldn't be able to talk to them until they all were on a break or in the stands. When they all entered the auditorium, Izuku felt like he cheered the loudest for his class. And Katsuki, of course, just had to make everyone his enemy with that speech. Though it could have been worse, he at least added plus ultra to the end of it. Though since Izuku didn't actually have a job to do, he was free to wander around the area and check stuff out, though he made sure to have a live feed of the competition playing on his phone and go in his headphones so he could listen while he walked around. He didn't expect to run into someone as he left the stands, especially not Endeavor. "Excuse me." He tried to push past the hero, but was stopped. You know my son." Izuku broke the hero's grip on him and turned with a smirk. "I do, Endeavor. I'm one of his teachers." He saw the realization hit Endeavor. "You're Seishin." The hero activated his quirk before Izuku stopped him. "I wouldn't do that if I were you. I'm working with UA and one of the teachers, and a quirkless child. What would people think if the number 2 hero attacked a poor child?" The hero glared as he deactivated his quirk. "Fine, if you're one of his teachers, convince him to give up this petty argument and use my fire." Izuku glared. "Oh, you mean help him use his fire? I plan to. Don't worry. But it won't be because of you and Dehor." The hero growled and activated his quirk again. "Bye-bye now. I have to watch my students do their best now." He walked calmly away from the hero, knowing he wouldn't attack Izuku unless he wanted to lose his license. After his run-in with Endeavor, Izuku was pissed. He was proud of his friends, all making to the next rounds with Todoroki in first and Bakugo in second with Shinsou thrown in the lower ranges, but he was still angry. "Izuku," he turned to see Aizawa, standing there. "Can you do something for me?" He smiled. "Of course. What can I help you with, old man?" Aizawa rolled his eyes and ruffled Izuku's hair. "Can you watch the next few rounds from the field? We need to make sure no one cheats. You'll be hooked up to this headset, so you can tell us directly if something happens." "OH, sounds fun." Now before the cavalry battles can begin, just to make sure no one cheats, we have our very own Vigilante Seishin on the field watching the teams. "Wave to us, Seishin." Izuku waved while jumping up and down as the crowd cheered. "Back to who you really came to see. Let the battle begin." Izuku was excited. He got to see everyone fight all together as teams. Some of the combinations were honestly really interesting, though he wanted to laugh when Monoma and Bakugo had their own mini-fights. He made sure no one stepped out of bounds or preformed illegal moves. A lot of them were creative honestly with how they would bend the rules. Every now and again he would hear someone over the channel ask if it was allowed, and Izuku would have to explain that yes, it is technically, and no, Izuku couldn't call out since his entire life was a technicality. Though it wasn't super fun to watch people go after Todoroki to get the 1 mil and then chicken out when he used his quirk. No one's going after Shudo. He spoke into the headset. He was glad it only went to the other heroes. "Shouldn't you be glad? Isn't he your boyfriend or something?" Midnight asked. "First off, he's not my boyfriend sure January." "Shut it." "Second, no. If no one goes after him, it shows people that they're too scared of losing rather than winning. If you're scared to lose a game, then you'll be even more scared to fight a villain." He's right. They aren't proving themselves. He was glad someone agreed with him, but the people won't care. They just want to show. Izuku grunted at the sad reality. "Wait, can they do that?" Present Mike asked, watching Bakugo leave his group. "Yep, he isn't touching the ground or anything, so Present Mike cut him off with a sigh. "Technically, it's not against the rules." "Thank you, Izuku. You're Shuda's kid, we get it." Izuku laughed at the frustration. Izuku was amazed. That last part with Shinsou, Bakugo, and Todoroki was intense. Todoroki had even used his fire, but that had made him hesitate. He had always known that Todoroki didn't like using his fire. He never knew why, though. Sure, he had ideas and theories, and knowing the guy's dad didn't help paint anything in a good light. At the end, with the winners announced, Izuku walked over to his class and friends and congratulated them. They did good after all. He stopped, though, when he felt someone tap him on his shoulder. He turned to Todoroki and smiled. "Can I talk to you in private?" Izuku nodded and said goodbye and good luck to everyone before following the other into an empty hall. Is everything okay, Shudo? He lightly touched the other's arm, but moved it away when the other flinched. There's something I need to tell you. Izuku smiled. He took a step back and sat down against the opposite wall with Todoroki following suit. You can tell me anything, Shudo. I'll always listen. Todoroki seemed to calm down at that, and smiled for a moment before going back to a serious and sad look. Do you know what quirk marriage is? Izuku was shocked, but not surprised. He knew Endeavor was bad, but to drive someone to that and treat a child like that. Todoroki seemed almost scared, though, like Izuku wouldn't believe him. Of course Izuku believed him. He knew how bad adults could be. It wasn't a long shot for the number 2 hero to be such a pages. He lunged forward and tackled the other into a hug, forcing Todoroki to lean onto the other wall for support. I'm sorry. God, none of that should have happened to you. Todoroki was shocked, but hugged back just as tightly. And don't blame yourself for what happened to you. Your mother? Siblings, please. It's not your fault, so don't take the blame. He felt Todoroki shake slightly, and his shoulder was becoming damp. Thank you, Izuku. He smiled and ran his hand through the other's hair to calm him down. After a couple minutes, he calmed down. And I'm sure your mom would love to see you. He felt the other tense. She wouldn't blame you. And if you're nervous, I can go talk to her first. How would you do that? Izuku pushed away a little and smirked. Shudo, I'm a vigilante. I have my ways. Izuku stood up and helped the other up. And it's your quirk, not his. Show him that and he'll lose okay. Todoroki froze but smiled. I'll try, thank you. Izuku nodded his head and smiled, wishing the other luck as he walked out of the tunnel. Kaken, Toshi, you recorded that, right? The two stepped out from the entrance of the tunnel and passed a small device to Izuku. Of course we did. Air's going down. DMN, right, Lava Girl? Before Todoroki dragged him away. Can I talk to you? In private. Izuku nodded and turned to the others. He walked over to Shinsou and Bakugu and handed them a small recording device. Follow us and record anything said. I have a feeling I know what this is about. He took a step back and waved good luck, everyone. The two friends looked to each other before following the two and staying hidden. After Izuku's talk with Todoroki, he really hoped he wouldn't run into Endeavor again. He didn't know what he would do, but it wouldn't be pretty. The next round was the 1v1s, and Izuku was a little more than excited. The first round was between Shinsou and the Monoma guy that had been at the door for his class. Toshi. The boy turned around and saw Izuku running up before he was tackled into a hug. Good luck. You got this. Shinsou hugged the shorter back before ruffling his hair. Thanks, and I know I do. The two laughed for a moment. So, what's your plan with Endeavor? Izuku smiled, though this one had more malice behind it. I blackmail him. If he thinks about touching any of them again, he'll be exposed. Or maimed. Haven't decided yet. Shinsou rolled his eyes, knowing Izuku was joking mostly. Yeah, we'll make sure to include me and Lava Girl. Izuku nodded before walking back to the stands. He placed his head on top of Todoroki and his arms on the other boy's shoulders. He flinched for a second, but calmed down when he realized it was just Izuku. So who do you think is going to win? Zero asked. I don't know. That Monoma guy, though, is a real piece of work. Kaminari pointed out with a small laugh. Could say that again, but we don't know what his quirk is. I do. Izuku cheered, getting everyone's attention. It's a copying quirk. Anyone he touches, he can copy their quirk and use it for about 3 minutes. And if I'm right, he touched his friend Testu, who has a hardening quirk like Kirishima, Uraraka, and he touched me, though that won't be going well. Izuku smirked, making the class shiver. Remind me to never get on his bad side. The fight was interesting to watch, to say the least. Shinsou had mostly dodged and used a few powerful punches, while it seemed like Monoma was just trying to hit hard and fast while he still had the quirks. And once he had run out of Tetsu and Uraraka's quirk, he had boosted about how he had one of his Seishin's quirk, and Shinsou had outright laughed in his face. It ended quickly after that, though, with Shinsou using his quirk at the last second. The next few fights were interesting to watch too, though Izuku glared when he saw Todoroki angry and creating a large glacier in the process. When it came to Uraraka versus Bakugu, though, Izuku went with Ida to talk to her. Other than the three main ones he talked to, Ida and Uraraka were two of his favorites, along with Sue. Uraraka, if you want I can give you a strategy to beat him. He offered, though he already knew the other wouldn't take it. He smirked when she declined. Good. You have confidence and a plan already. You'll do great. She looked close to tears just by him talking. Even if you don't win, you'll make a scene. Go out there and win. She smiled with determination as the two high-fived. Not long after he walked out to where Bakuga was. The two stared at each other before Izuku pulled him into a hug. Don't hold back, Bakuga grunted and hugged back. Your mom's wrong. You're not weak. Go show them she isn't either. He heard Bakuga laugh. DM in right I will. While Izuku was disappointed that Uraraka, he was proud of both of them. Bakuga didn't underestimate her, and she kept him on his toes constantly. Though when the heroes started yelling, Izuku had lost it. If you think you should go easy on her, then you don't deserve to be here. They are both fighting to prove themselves, and you're whining like she's some injured animal or that he's a ruthless killer. So how about you shut the F up? That got everyone's attention, though Aizawa took it back and talked more calmly than Izuku had. The rest of the fights went a little more calmly then, that as they finally came down to the final two, Todoroki and Bakuga. Throughout the entire time, he hadn't seen Todoroki use his fire once. So when it was break, he talked to Todoroki again. Shudo, are you okay? The other turned a little confused. I'm fine, why? He walked closer and grabbed the other's left hand. You haven't used your fire. The other seemed to try and pull away to say something, but Izuku didn't let him. And you keep saying it's his fire and not yours, but you and I both know that's not true. He looked up and met Todoroki's eyes, who looked shocked. Shudo, you mean everything to me, and I don't want your father to be the reason you fall. He kissed the other's left hand, making him blush. Okay, so use it. He let the other's hand go before smiling and walking away, though as soon as he was out of eyesight, he sprinted to Uraraka's room. Uraraka, holy CRP, I just did something. The girl was shocked, but seemed to cheer up. What did you do? I kissed his hand and told him he meant everything to me. He shrieked while he sank to the floor. Oh my God, tell me everything. Izuku was amazed while watching Bakuga and Todoroki fight. Todoroki had actually used his flames, and it was appealing to watch. It's like a fusion between the Todoroki fight and the Todoroki fight, though he was a little sad when Bakuga had won. After awards were handed out, Bakuga isn't chained up, but still a little salty. Izuku had all but ran down and tackled the two into a hug. Oh my God, you two were amazing. It was so cool to watch. And that move you pulled, Kaken, was awesome. And Shudo, you actually did it. I'm so proud. He hugged the two again before going to Tokoyami. You did great. Dark Shadow was so cool. And you thought of ways to distract your opponents even. Izuku kept talking about how well the three did in their fights, though in the back of his mind he knew he had to make a few stops that night. Rei sat in her bed, rewatching the sports festival. She was so happy to see her son doing well and even using his flames. Maybe he would even visit soon. Her train of thought was cut off as she heard a knock at her window. She walked over, pulling the curtains back, and almost screamed, seeing someone hanging there. He smiled and waved a little. She slowly opened her window and let him in. Thank you. Hi, I'm Midoriya, Izuku. I'm a friend of your son's. He explained quickly. At the mention of her son, she seemed to calm down. Oh, is he with you? He shook his head, a little sad. That's actually why I'm here. He's thinking about visiting you soon, but he wanted me to ask something first. She nodded her head with hope. Do you hate him? She shook her head and smiled. I could never hate him. He's my son. He means everything to me. I was afraid that he hated me for what I did to him. Will he really visit soon? The boy smiled brightly. Sooner than you think. And he pulled her into a hug, surprising her a little, but not unwelcome. Thank you for taking care of him. He let her go and went back to the window. I'll visit again, maybe. Have a good night, Miss Rei. Thank you, Midoriya. And you too. She closed the window with a large smile. Her son was coming to see her. Izuku didn't bother to knock on the window this time. All he did was climb in, and the person on the bed was awake. Sorry to wake you, Ingenium. Just needed to make sure you weren't dead. He joked a little. It'll take more than that guy to kick me down. Izuku was the other Ida's asleep on an extra bed and couch. Good. He leaned against the bed. I don't know what Ida would do without you. Tensei hummed. It was Stain, right? Yes, it was the hero killer. Do you know why he didn't kill you? No. He only talked about true heroes, then left me there. Izuku glared at the ground. Right, he's still in Hosu according to my sources. I'll keep an eye out for him. Wouldn't be the first time he ran into me. He was about to walk away when Tensei grabbed his arm. Wait, you're Seishin. Will you do me a favor? Izuku nodded his head. Please look after Tenya. I'm not there all the time, but you are, so make sure he doesn't die. Izuku looked to the younger brother, who was still asleep. Of course, don't die on us, hero. Izuku saluted before falling out the window. Now that you're all back, Aizawa and Izuku stood at the front. You all need to choose hero names. Izuku nodded his head. He loved choosing his name honestly. Whoa, really? This is going to be so cool. Aizawa looked to Izuku to talk. Yep, I'm going to help with it along with me. Midnight yelled while bursting into the room and shocking the class. Wait, Aizawa-sensei, why aren't you doing it? Uraraka asked. Aizawa stared for a moment. I'm not good at it. Izuku laughed a little thinking about the story Present Mike had told him. Okay, let's get started. Midnight and Izuku passed out whiteboards and markers. Write a name you want, then come and present it to the front. Me and Midoriya will either give the okay, fix it, or tell you to choose a different one. Izuku stood against the wall watching the others until someone asked him a question. Midoriya. He turned to Toru. What did you choose your name? Izuku smiled. Are you guys actually curious? Some of the class nodded their heads or gave verbal answers. All right, let me draw it out for you. He walked to the board and began writing random things on it. When I first started out, I didn't have anything, but a lot of people call me a ghost since I just disappeared a lot. So I used that and thought of something else, and I took the ghost kitsune's name Seishin. Izuku finished, setting the chalk down and leaning against the board. Whoa, that's pretty cool, Midoriya. Izuku smiled. Thanks, Uraraka. Pretty much everyone had a name, even though a few had to go through changes. Though Izuku did laugh at Katsuki for a minute straight. They next had to choose who they were going to intern with for the next week. Izuku was in the teacher's lounge for that, though looking over the hero killer case. He might not have been super close to Ida or the hero, but he still considered them his friends. He was looking at the places the hero killer had been striking and who exactly it was. He didn't think he had ever seen or heard of the hero killer till more recently. Flipping through the file one more time, he stopped at a page and his eyes widened. It was a picture of the hero killer. Though it was pretty grainy, he could still tell who it was. I will be the one to fix this world. Izuku distinctly remembered that sentence from the guy. He looked over the case file again, and everything started making more and more sense. The guy was trying to get rid of what he thought as fake heroes and leave only the ones he thought of as good people, which seemed to only be All Might and Izuku at the moment. Seemed like it was time to plan another trip to Hosu. It was the day all the students would be going to their internships, and when Izuku planned on going to Hosu, though the others didn't know that yet. What do you plan on doing while we go to internships? Shinsou asked while they all walked to the train station. Oh, nothing really. Just a few cases is all. It's going to be so boring without you guys. He tackled Bakugu with a hug. Hey, get the F off me. Izuku dodged the other with a laugh as they fought. Enough. Aizawa got everyone's attention. Remember, you're representing UA, and make sure to treat them all with respect. The class let off a chorus of yes, sensei, while Izuku thought up a plan. He needed to get to Hosu without anyone knowing, so he would likely hitchhike on the train like before. Then he would need to track down the hero killer, if he was even still in Hosu, and try to detain him alone. It wasn't that he didn't think he could do it, it was that if the last time happened again, he wouldn't be able to run home this time. Are you okay? Izuku was snapped out of his thoughts by Todoroki. HM. Yes, sorry, just lost in thought. He waved the other off, but he could tell the other didn't exactly believe him. Okay, I'm always here to talk. Izuku smiled and nodded. Thanks, Shudo. Okay, maybe you should have at least told Aizawa or Present Mike where he was going, because as soon as they found out, he knew he was going to be grounded for the rest of his life. He finished gearing up as he walked to the train to Hosu. Checking the time, he saw it was getting close to 8 p.m. now. If he was right, then Stain would strike around midnight. He climbed to the top of the train and laid down on the roof, with his feet hooked on one of the ladders. While it drove to Hosu, he tried to think of where the killer might strike. He wouldn't want to target the big ones yet, and would want one that was out and about closer tonight, and likely wouldn't call backup as soon as he saw them. He heard what sounded like yelling and sat up, quickly looking to the left of the train. There was something flying toward the train quickly, and it looked like a hero and a Nomu. Before it crashed, he slid down to the ladder and held on. As soon as it hit, he swung into the train and saw two heroes already helping civilians and helping the hero from before with the Nomu. He looked to the city, and it was already like the entire thing was on fire. He had helped any civilians he saw and made sure any injured were properly treated. Running, he saw Manuel and stopped. Ida wasn't anywhere near him. "Where's your intern?" The hero seemed shocked by his presence, but didn't waste time on answering. "I'm not sure." He took off down an alley. He shouted over the roar of a Nomu. Izuku nodded before taking off where Manuel had pointed. The alleys were like a maze. He could barely hear anything over the Nomus anyway. Turning another corner, he finally saw them. A hero was slumped against a wall, seeming frozen, Ida on the ground with a sword to his neck, and Stain standing above him. He threw a shield, making the other back off. He took out his staff and ran at the other as he called the shield back, swinging once he was able to get the sword away from Ida's neck. "Midoriya, what are you doing here?" Izuku crouched low and pulled out his phone, notifying people of his location. "I'm saving you." He spun his staff a little lazily while keeping an eye on the downed hero in the corner. "Don't get involved. This isn't your fight." Izuku scoffed a little. "What are you talking about?" Izuku ran over the files in his head. If he was right, then cutting was the way he activated his quirk on people. "Your friend came to save you. That's a good line, isn't it? Now what will you do, Seishin?" Izuku flinched a little at the voice, remembering the amount of BLD he lost. Wait. If cutting activated his quirk, then Izuku would have been affected that night. So was something else. "I told you to not. This has nothing to do with you." Izuku smirked before standing up fully. He pointed his staff to the hero killer. "It does actually. We have some unfinished business, don't we, Stain? And going after more heroes. Not a good idea in my book." The two charged at each other. Izuku slid under the other's sword and between his legs before flexing his hands and slashing at Stain's arm. He blocked the other's sword with his shield before jumping up and over the hero killer. Izuku felt heat and quickly ducked. "One after another, too many people are getting in my way today." Izuku smirked at Todoroki. "You're not really one to send something like that. You meant you were in trouble and called for help, right?" Todoroki asked, freezing the ground, with Izuku sliding down next to him and the pro off the ground. "Don't worry, the pros will also be here soon." He lit his arm on fire, pushing Stain back more. The ice melted, letting the pro slide down to where the other three were. "Someone's time will be up soon, huh?" "This is just like what the information implies." Todoroki stood in front of the three. "I won't let you kill these guys, hero killer. You have good friends in Genium." Stain yelled while leaping and charging at Todoroki. Todoroki held him off while Izuku made sure that Stain couldn't land a hit on either of them. Stain had thrown two knives at Todoroki's left side at the same moment. Izuku lunged forward and grabbed one while the other was embedded in his arm. In his other hand, he grabbed his staff and swung at Stain's side. Izuku took off again and grabbed the hero killer's arm before throwing him up against a wall. Izuku ran up the wall and kicked the killer to the ground before they both landed. "Get back, Izuku." He jumped out of the way, just in time for Todoroki to use his ice and push Stain back more. Izuku landed next to Todoroki. "Follow my lead." Todoroki nodded as Izuku charged forward. He ran to a wall and up it slightly before turning in the air and aiming a kick to Stain, who dodged. Izuku twisted again and rolled while Todoroki used his fire and ice to attack him again. Once he stopped, Izuku charged again with his staff. They fought. Stain seemed to be slipping up more and more. Izuku flipped and switched to his shield again. Instead of going back, though, Stain pushed forward. Before Izuku could dodge, he swung his sword down and hard. Izuku blocked with his uninjured arm, but it was enough to make him stumble a little and hit the wall. There was a lot of BLD. He grunted before he fell to the ground. "Izuku." A beam of fire was shot at the killer as he tried to get another hit on Izuku. Stain licked the BLD, making him freeze again, while Todoroki created more ice. Izuku was shocked and worried. He had tried to keep track of Stain's movements while fighting, but now that he was losing, he was becoming desperate and even more dangerous. Shudo! He screamed as Stain got close to cutting the other's arm off. Luckily, Ida had finally been able to move and broke the sword before kicking Stain away. Ida! He sighed in relief. You got out. The quirk isn't as great as I thought. Todoroki Midoriya, the two looked to him. This has nothing to do with you two, and I apologize. Ida panted out, please run. The hero killer charged again. Out of the question. Todoroki pushed Ida out of the way and used his fire. Doesn't look like he'll let us. Izuku watched them, still trying to move. He's getting antsy. He wants to finish before the pros arrive. Izuku announced. The two nodded as Todoroki tried to keep it back. You're in the way. The hero killer threw a knife. Ida used his own arm to catch the blade. He threw another one, and Ida did the same. Ida! Izuku felt himself able to move again, but he had to use the wall to stand. I can move. Izuku looked down, feeling his leg give out slightly. He hadn't even noticed when Stain cut his leg. Let's finish this. Izuku saw Ida and Todoroki doing something. He stood up fully and took a few steps back. He ran up the wall using his claws to get a better grip and flung himself into the air with the help of a pipe. He twisted slightly and pulled his staff out. He hit the killer with the staff before turning and kicking him at the same time as Ida. Ida landed on his feet while Izuku rolled and skidded for a second before slowly trying to get up. Todoroki ran up and made sure the hero killer was out before running over to Izuku, who was cradling his arms. Are you okay? Izuku laughed a little at the question. He definitely wasn't. Fine for now. He took the blade from before out and winced a little. Can you freeze them over? Todoroki nodded before freezing them over. He grunted a little since it hurt his arms. Sorry. Izuku smiled. It's okay. I asked you to. He looked over and saw Native was finally able to move and was tying up Stain. We need to get his weapons off him. They all stood at the entrance of the alley with Native holding the rope for Stain and Izuku using Todoroki to stand. It would be better if you just let me carry you, Todoroki pointed out as he adjusted his grip on Izuku a little. Probably, but who knows, pros might try to arrest me again. He joked. Ida walked over, and they all began talking quietly before the pros arrived. Izuku noticed right away that Ida and Todoroki were shielding him from the eyes of the pros as best as they could. And who is this? Endeavor asked. Izuku let go of Todoroki and stood up fully and walked forward. Well, hi, Endeavor. It's been a minute. How are you this fine evening? Izuku smirked and knew it pissed off the other since he couldn't do anything about it. Fine, let's just leave. What you three did was reckless and against the law. Izuku only smirked while the chef of police scolded them. You could go to jail for what you did. Todoroki stood up angrily and glared at the officer. What did you want us to do? Just stand there and die. Izuku stood up and put a hand on Todoroki's chest, pushing him back a little. It's okay, Shudo. The fire and ice user looked at him before nodding and calming down a little. What we did wasn't against the law, actually. The officer and hero looked at him, confused, while he grabbed his wallet and pulled out his hero license. I gave them both permission to fight. Since I have a license, it should give me that power, right? And we all also had permission to fight since the Nomus were running all over town. The officer took the license and looked between him and the card. You're Seishin. Izuku smiled and nodded. Yep. But don't worry, I never forgot the few times you almost caught me, chef. The officer glared and handed him back the card, though he did glare at Izuku. I see. We'll leave you to heal then. Once they left, Izuku let out a breath and started laughing. Oh my god, that worked. Todoroki and Ida looked at him shocked. Midoriya, you should have a better thought-out plan. Ida scolded him, making Izuku smirk. I'm not the guy that tried to kill someone for revenge. Ida stopped and looked shocked before smiling a little. Touché. Izuku. He turned to see Todoroki running up to him, panting a little. What's up, Shudo? The other teen stood up straight and looked off to the side. Izuku tried to meet his eyes with a smile. Is everything okay? Yeah, I was just wondering if you want Mei go out sometime. Izuku stood there shocked, not sure how to react. The both of them were blushing wildly at this point. If you don't, it's fine, Izuku cut him off. Yes. I mean, yes, I would love to. Todoroki smiled and nodded his head. Okay, is Friday at 7 okay? Izuku nodded, still blushing. I'll see you then. Izuku just nodded numbly again until Todoroki walked away. Holy F. He pulled out his phone and called Shinsou, Uraraka, Ida, and Tsu guys. The F do you want, nerd? Is everything alright, Midoriya? Okay. Did it finally happen? Izuku moved the phone a little and screamed. Shudo asked me out. We have a date on Friday at 7. Oh nice, me and Denki are hanging out Saturday. I got SHD with shitty hair on F and Friday. Oh look at us, we're dating someone and not dead inside, get F. Uraraka. That is inappropriate language. Let her have this, Ida. Shut up. I need you guys to help me decide what I should wear. It's not till Friday, right? Just meet up at the F Air's house at 5. We'll figure this SHD out. It was Friday, and Izuku was nervous. He was passing in the living room with Hisashi, Aizawa, Shinsou, and Bakugo watching him. Izuku, calm down, it'll be fine. Aizawa wasn't the best at comforting him, but he would try. Ya little listener. Me and Sho's first date was just as nerve-wracking, and look at us now. We're married with 3 kids. Bakugo kicked him in the side, since he wasn't technically their kid. Aizawa rolled his eyes at them, while Shinsou tried not to laugh. But you two are great together. Shudo's this amazing, appealing, strong person. He could literally get anyone. Shinsou sighed and stood up, grabbing the other by his shoulders. Listen, Izuku, you're just as amazing and cool or whatever, so you're both perfect for each other, plus I'm tired of hearing about how pretty his eyes are. Shinsou made fun of him by clasping his hands together and fluttering his eyes. Shut it. You're not any better, mister. His hair is so soft and his hands are nice. The two started to play, fighting while the other 3 just watched them before there was a knock at the door. They went to answer it and were greeted with Tsu, Uraraka, Ida, Kaminari, and Kirishima. Did you seriously invite your boyfriends too? Bakugo stood up and dragged Kirishima inside. F off. If I have to deal with helping you pick SHD out, I'm bringing him. Izuku rolled his eyes and let the others in. Thank you guys so much for helping me with this. No problem, Midoriya. Let's get this show on the road. They had looked through all of Izuku's clothes and had decided on 3 outfits to choose from. A black plain shirt with ripped blue jeans, a white undershirt with a red plaid and black jeans, or a black button-up with leggings. I say the leggings. Uraraka stood up and handed him the outfit. It shows off your legs, and the button-up frames you nicely. Cheeks is right. Do the combat boots with it. Bakugo wasn't even looking up as he sat in Kirishima's lap, scrolling on his phone. Okay, now go get changed. Me and Tsu have makeup for you. Kaminari raised his hand with a smile. I brought some too. Izuku smiled and went to the bathroom to change. When he came back out, some of them jokingly whistled. You look very pleasant, Midoriya. I'm sure Todoroki will love it. Izuku smiled. Thanks, Ida, but I'm still nervous. Uraraka forced him to sit down, while Kaminari moved in front of him. Look at me. He started doing the other's makeup while talking. You got this. You look hot. Todoroki is always hot. It'll be fine. Did you just call Todoroki hot? Hitoshi, not the time. The group were relaxing still and helping calm down Izuku when there was another knock at the door. Izuku jumped up and started panicking again. Oh no, that's him. Oh God. Aizawa could hear him panicking and stood up to get the door. Todoroki, come in. The boy looked a little nervous as Aizawa let him in. Sit down. He's almost ready. Hey, little listener. You excited? Todoroki nodded his head. Yes, very much, though I'm a little nervous. Hisashi handed him a cup of tea. Don't worry. He's just as nervous. As soon as he said that, the door opened, and Izuku walked out nervously with his hand behind his back. Whoa. Todoroki stood up. You look amazing. Izuku blushed. Thanks, you do too. The two just smiled at each other before Hisashi started pushing them out. Okay, you two. Have fun and be safe. He closed the door, leaving the two outside. So where to first? Izuku asked. It took a moment for Todoroki to answer, since he seemed to be staring at Izuku. There's a park near here I figured we could go to. Izuku smiled wide and grabbed the other's hand. Great. Let's go. Todoroki nodded and guided him to where the park was. When they arrived, it was pretty empty. There were lights trailing all along the ground, and even some in the trees. Izuku looked at it all in shock. It was so appealing. I presume you like it? Todoroki asked, standing next to him. Izuku turned to him with a smile. Of course I like it. It's amazing. Well, wait till you see the best part. Todoroki then led him through a trail to an open area. It was secluded from the rest of the park, so no one could see them. It had lights hanging everywhere, a blanket on the ground, and a small basket with it. Shudo, this is... Wow, you did all this. Todoroki nodded and blushed a little before Izuku tackled him into a hug. Thank you so much. Todoroki hugged him back, still a little surprised. Of course, they both separated. Why don't we sit down? They spent the next couple hours talking and eating. By the end of it, they were both happy and smiling. This was really sweet of you, Shudo. No one's ever done something like this for me. Todoroki took his hand and kissed his knuckles. It's payback for doing that at the sports festival. Izuku blushed before grabbing Todoroki's face and kissing him. The other was shocked for a moment before he relaxed into it and resting his hands on Izuku's hips. And that's payback for being so nice. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku became Quirkless Vigilante. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to Jace is Dead for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on archiveofourown.org for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zenin Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. See you soon in the next video.